Good morning. I call the meeting of the Arizona Board of Regents to order. Suzanne, do we have a quorum? Thank you. Welcome, everyone. A link to the live stream of the public meeting is available on the board's website under ABOR Live or by going to YouTube and searching for ABOR News. Regent Pacheco, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, sir. For all of those that are willing and able to stand, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to thank President Cruz Rivera for hosting our June board meeting in this new location. We will hear more from President Cruz Rivera at the beginning of the afternoon session. The board will convene an executive session immediately following the call to the audience for the items listed on the executive portion of the agenda. Public session will resume this afternoon at approximately 3:05 p.m. or immediately following executive session. Friday morning, the board will reconvene an executive session at 9 a.m. for the remaining executive items. I would like to make a motion now for the board to enter into executive session immediately after the call to the audience. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the motion carries. So we will do the call to the audience portion of the meeting. Before we begin, we will play a video that explains the process. Yeah.
During our regular board meetings, the Arizona Board of Regents and the public universities set aside 30 minutes for call to the audience to invite members of the public to address the board. This is an opportunity for individuals to express their views or concerns regarding matters of board governance in a public setting. Call to the audience is just one way the public can address the board. Alternate ways are available through our website at www.ezregents.edu. To ensure a fair distribution of time for each call to the audience speaker, the board has a policy governing the call to the audience. If you have any materials for the regents, please give them to our board secretary and she will distribute them to the board. ABOR Policy 1-114 states that subject to the discretion of the chair, requests to appear before the board shall be scheduled in the following order of priority until the available time is exhausted. 1. Speakers who wish to address matters scheduled for the current meeting agenda. 2. Speakers who wish to address matters not scheduled for the current meeting agenda and who have not addressed the board at a call to the audience in the previous 6 months. 3. Speakers who wish to address matters not scheduled for the current meeting agenda and who have addressed the board at a call to the audience in the previous 6 months. Please note that if a speaker does not identify a topic, they will be treated as addressing a matter which is not scheduled for board action or discussion at that meeting. Generally, the board will not respond to comments or presentations made at the call to the audience, but may refer matters to its staff or to university personnel for study or recommendations. The board reserves the right to limit the number of presenters on any one topic. The chair will determine the length of time for each speaker based on the number of requests received. When you are called to speak, please proceed to the lectern. When the speaker has reached the allotted time, the board chair will ask the speaker to conclude their comments. After 10 seconds, the chair will thank the speaker and ask the board secretary to call the next speaker. When the allotted 30 minutes of call to the audience is complete, any speakers not called may submit their comments to the board through the board's website. Speakers may also provide any materials to the board secretary to disseminate to the regents. Thank you for your thoughtful engagement and adherence to the guidelines for call to the audience.
So we have 30 minutes allocated for this. Today we have 17 speakers signed up. So we are going to use 2 minutes per speaker. As a courtesy to each speaker, our assistant board secretary, Rachel, will hold up a sign signaling how much time you have remaining. Once the time is up, Rachel will ask you to conclude your remarks, and then your microphone will be turned off and the next speaker will be called. We do want to hear from as many people as possible, so please be respectful of the time limits so that everyone on the list who has signed up is able to speak and talk to us. Suzanne, please call our first speaker.
Thank you, Chair Goodyear. When your name is called, please proceed to the assigned podium, A or B. Our first speaker is Micah Dyer at podium A, followed by Zachary Bush at podium B.
Hello, good morning, Chair, Regents, and University leadership. My name is Micah Dyer, and I serve as the Vice President of Policy for the Undergraduate Student Government at ASU's West Valley campus. And I want to begin with item 5.4, the West Valley Innovation Zone and the partnership with Phoenix Children's. I just want to say this is a powerful and much needed investment in the West Valley, particularly in expanding access to pediatric behavioral health services. And hopeful that it'll provide meaningful opportunities for students across nursing, behavioral health programs to engage in hands-on critical learning. And I think this is exactly the kind of innovation that reflects what higher education can and should be. And is deeply connected to community needs while preparing students for real-world impact. But I also want to speak to item 5.6 and the proposed increase in procurement thresholds. And while I understand that intention to modernize operations and account for growth, increasing the threshold from 100,000 to 250,000 is a significant shift in delegated authority. And I think with shifts like this, transparency becomes even more important. Students are not only stakeholders, we are tuition-paying members of this system, and decisions around financial stewardship directly impact affordability, trust, and long-term sustainability. But more broadly, I want to speak to the policy revision process and the opportunity in front of us. Across higher education, there's a growing recognition that institutions function best when the people most impacted by decisions are meaningfully involved in shaping them. Political theorist Sherry Arnstein describes this through the ladder of civic participation, where systems can range from tokenism, where voices are heard but not meaningfully acted on, to true partnership and shared decision-making. Right now, there's an opportunity for a board to lead in moving students up that ladder. But I got a short amount of time, so please come talk to me after. But before I run out of time, I do want to thank Regent Fisher for all of her work and partnership, her commitment to making this our vote and setting a precedent for student engagement. So much appreciated and best of luck. Thank you.
The next speaker is Zachary Bush at podium B, followed by Vanessa Mendoza. Please proceed to podium A.
Good afternoon, Chair of Regents. My name is Zachary Bush. I work for Aramark at Arizona State University on the Tempe campus, and I am a proud member of the Unite Here Local 11. I'm here today because workers are still waiting for a fair contract from your contractor, Aramark. Last time I spoke with you, I shared some of the workplace issues workers have been dealing with every day, such as the broken equipment, leaking coolers, improperly working air conditioning units, as well as sanitizer equipment that hasn't been working properly for the past year, even after I've reported it multiple times to my management. These may sound like small problems on their own, but together they paint a larger picture. As Regents, I encourage you to think about what this labor dispute says about the contractor operating on your campuses. Workers have spent months asking for fair wages, safe working conditions, and respect on the job, yet negotiations continue to drag on while many of the concerns workers raise remain unaddressed. Students, workers, and the broader university community all deserve better. Aramark operates on your campus and represents your institutes every day. Is this the level of service, accountability, treatment of your workers that you expect from their university contractor? We are asking to hold Aramark accountable and push them to resolve the dispute so workers can finally get the fair treatment they deserve. Thank you.
The next speaker is Vanessa Mendoza at podium A, followed by Jeremy West. Please proceed to podium B.
Good afternoon, Chair and Regents. My name is Vanessa Martinez Mendoza, and I work for Aramark inside the Panda Express on Arizona State University's downtown Phoenix campus. For nearly 3 years, workers alleged that our air conditioning hadn't worked effectively. Working in that kitchen feels like standing inside of an oven. In March, I had to be hospitalized because of the heat and dehydration after days of reporting to my shift in sweltering temperatures. Things became so bad that workers had to file an OSHA complaint and organize a work stoppage just to get management's attention. No worker should have to risk their health or organize a public campaign simply to be heard when they raise serious concerns about workplace safety. What has changed since we last came before you is that on May 11th, 2 union organizers were arrested while peacefully protesting outside ASU graduation. One of those organizers is my sister. As workers, we have spent months trying to get Aramark to address our concerns and negotiate a fair contract. We have spoken publicly, shared our stories, organized peacefully, and asked for accountability. We have been exercising our most basic fundamental constitutional rights to freedom and speech and assembly, something public universities are obligated to respect. Yet instead of pushing its contractors to resolve this labor dispute, ASU chose to arrest people who were standing with workers and advocating for change. The message workers hear is that when we speak up about unsafe conditions, low wages, and the challenges, the response is not to solve the problem, but to silence the people calling attention to it. Please know that we will not let that happen. Our union is exploring all the steps it can to defend our constitutional rights as our dispute continues. The arrest did not fix the broken air conditioning. They did not improve workplace safety. They did not settle the contract. They did not address the concerns workers have been raising for months. As the very workers who feed the university, we are extremely disturbed by the approach ASU has taken to our exercise of basic protest rights. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jeremy West at podium B, followed by Juana Botilla at, please proceed to podium A.
Good afternoon, Chair and Regents. My name is Jeremy, and I work for Aramark at ASU on the Tempe campus. I am here today because workers are still waiting for a fair contract from your contractor, Aramark. For me, this contract is about stability. My husband is disabled and relies on healthcare and benefits that could be jeopardized if I earn too much income. At the same time, my wages at Aramark are not enough to fully support our household or provide the healthcare security we need. As a result, I am constantly forced to balance how much I can work and earn. I find myself caught between two impossible choices: earning enough money to support my family or protecting the benefits my husband depends on. No worker should have to live with that kind of uncertainty. Many of my coworkers are facing similar challenges while continuing to show up every day and serve ASU students and the university community. Month after month, workers have come before this board asking for the same thing: a fair contract that allows us to live with dignity and security. Aramark is your contractor, and this dispute is happening on your campuses. I ask you to use your influence to help bring these negotiations to a fair resolution and ensure workers receive the support and stability that they deserve. Thank you for your time and consideration.
The next speaker is Juana Botillo at podium A, followed by Karina Escobar.
Hi, Juana speaks Spanish. May I translate?
Yes.
Buenas tardes, presidente y miembros de la Junta de Regentes. Mi nombre es Juana Botello, trabajo en Fishboard para Aramark en la Universidad Estatal de Arizona, ASU, en el campus de Tempe. Estoy aquí hoy porque los trabajadores aún no contamos con un contrato justo y ahora que ha llegado el verano, muchos de nosotros nos enfrentamos a una situación de poco o ningún trabajo. Mientras continúa este conflicto, durante el año académico mantuvimos estos campos en funcionamiento todos los días, atendiendo a los estudiantes, preparando comidas y apoyando las operaciones de la universidad. Esa labor nunca se detuvo. Sin embargo, ahora que el año académico ha hecho una pausa, muchos trabajadores se quedan repentinamente sin ingreso estatal estable hasta que se reanuden las clases. Lo que complica aún más la situación es que esta inesperada ocurre mientras las negociaciones aún no se han logrado a un acuerdo justo. Se pide a los trabajadores que esperen mientras se interrumpe su capacidad para ganarse la vida. Desde nuestro punto de vista, esta situación se ha por lo prolongado demasiado sin resolverse. Como miembro de la Junta de Regentes, ustedes supervisar las situaciones que contratar o armar.
Please conclude your remarks.
No,
Good afternoon, good morning, Chair and Regents. My name is Juana Botello, and I'm a food service worker for Aramark at Pitchforks at Arizona State University on the Tempe campus. I'm here today because workers are still without a fair contract, and now that summer is here, many of us are facing little to no work while this dispute continues. During the school year, we kept these campuses running every day, serving students, preparing meals, and supporting university operations. That work did not stop. But now, with the academic year paused, many workers are suddenly left without steady income until classes resume. What makes the situation more difficult is that this instability is happening while negotiations have still not resulted in a fair agreement. Workers are being asked to wait while their ability to earn a living is interrupted. From where we stand, this has gone on long enough without resolution. As regents, you oversee the institutions that contract with Aramark. That means you're connected with connected to the conditions workers are describing here today, including what happens when campus operations slow down and workers lose income. How long are workers expected to go without stability while continuing to keep this university running during the school year? What are you doing to keep workers' disputes with Aramark from spreading to other campuses? We're asking you to use your authority to ensure this contract is resolved fairly and without further delay. Thank you.
The next speaker is Corina Escobar at podium B, followed by Leonardo Maldonado. Please proceed to podium A.
Good morning, Chair and Regents. My name is Corina Escobar. I'm a cook at Verde Dining Hall at West Campus ASU, and I am a proud member of Unite Here Local 11. While I work for Aramark full-time, my paycheck is not enough to cover my expenses, especially when doing halls close to dining halls are closed and workers lose hours during school breaks, as now as the summertime is approaching or is here already. We are out of jobs right now, most of us. And to make ends meet, I have to sell my blood or my plasma 2 times a week to try to make ends meet, get food on my table, and get minor bills paid as well. And after a lifetime of working, I never imagined that I would have to sell my blood or my plasma to pay for necessities and bills. And it is physically draining. It takes time away from my life, and I still carry the marks on my arms from doing it week after week. The reality is that many workers are doing everything they can to survive while this labor dispute drags on. We work hard. We serve many, many students. We show up every day for work, yet many of us are still struggling to make our most basic needs to meet them. Should workers who prepare food for ASU students have to sell plasma to make ends meet? Should workers have to spend their summers worrying about how they will survive without steady hours? Is this the standard you expect from a company that represents Arizona public universities? Aramark is your contractor. This labor dispute is happening on your campuses and under your watch. We are asking you to use your influence and hold Aramark accountable and responsible. Please let Aramark know to come prepared to resolve this dispute so workers can finally earn the stability and dignity that they deserve. Thank you so much for listening.
The next speaker is Leonardo Maldonado at podium A, followed by Maria Fuentes. Please proceed to podium B.
Buenas tardes, presidente y miembros de la Junta Regresiva. Me llamo Leonardo Maldonado y trabajo en Qdoba para Aramark en el campus de Tempe de la Universidad Estatal de Arizona. Todos los días vengo a trabajar y cumplo con mi labor de atender a los estudiantes y mantener en funcionamiento los servicios de comedor del campus. Este trabajo es importante. Sin embargo, las condiciones en las que trabajamos hacen que sea cada vez más difícil mantener la estabilidad fuera del trabajo. La realidad para muchos de nosotros es que realizamos una labor esencial para esta universidad. al mismo tiempo que luchamos por cubrir nuestras necesidades básicas. Este contrato debería abordar precisamente esa brecha, en la razón por la que los trabajadores hemos acudido ante ustedes en repetidas ocasiones. Desde nuestra perspectiva, las negociaciones se han prolongado demasiado, sin llegar a una solución, mientras los mismos problemas siguen afectando a los trabajadores día tras día. ¿En qué momento decidirá esta junta de la empresa contratista que opera en sus campus debe rendir cuentas y resolver estos problemas? Les pedimos que ejerzan su autoridad para exigir responsabilidades de sus contratistas y resuelvan esta disputa. Gracias.
Good morning, Chair and Regents. My name is Leonardo Maldonado, and I'm a food service worker for Aramark at ASU on the Tempe campus. Every day I come to work and do my job serving students and keep campus dining operations running. This work matters, but the conditions we are working under make it increasingly difficult to stay stable outside of work. The reality for many of us is that we're doing essential work for this university while still struggling to meet basic needs in our own lives. That gap is what this contract is supposed to address. And it is why workers have been coming before you repeatedly. From where we stand, negotiations have dragged on for far too long without resolution, while the same issues continue to affect workers every day. At what point does this board decide that a contractor working on your campuses must be held accountable for resolving these issues? We're asking you to use your authority to hold your contractor accountable and resolve this dispute. Thank you.
The next speaker is Maria Fuentes at podium B, followed by Ana Martinez. Please proceed to podium A.
Hola, buenas tardes, presidentes y miembros de la Junta. Me llamo, perdón, estoy muy nerviosa. Me llamo María Fuentes, trabajo para Pittsburgh, Naramac, campus de Tempe, la universidad. Estoy aquí hoy porque los trabajadores siguen negociando con su contratista, Aramac, y aunque aún esperemos un contrato justo, me enorgullece atender a los estudiantes y contribuir al funcionamiento de los servicios del comedor del campus. Sin embargo, hace poco viví en carne propia los desafíos que enfrentamos muchos trabajadores. Sufrí una quemadura grave en el brazo, posiblemente de segundo o tercer grado. Considero que la lección podría haberse podido evitar con una mejor capacitación, traer información del incidente a mi manejador. Pasaron varios días antes de que me enviaran al médico. Al no contar con atención médica accesible, no pude buscar tratamiento por mi cuenta seguro, viniendo al trabajo. A pesar del inmenso dolor que pasé pruebas, perdí ingresos como muchos trabajadores, tengo facturas que pagar y no puedo permitir faltar al trabajo. Mi caso no es uno mucho de aislado. Muchos trabajadores enfrentan problemas de seguridad laboral, falta
Please
de acceso.
conclude your remarks.
Good morning, Chair and Regents. My name is Maria Fuentes, and I'm a food service worker for Aramark at ASU on the Tempe campus. I'm here today because workers are still negotiating with your contractor, Aramark, and we are still waiting for a fair contract. I take pride in serving students and helping keep campus dining operations running. But recently, I experienced firsthand the challenges many workers face. I suffered a severe burn at work that may have been a second or third degree burn. I believe the injury could have been prevented with better training. After I reported it to management, I was not sent to a doctor for several days. Because I don't have affordable health care, I could not seek treatment on my own. I continued coming to work while in significant pain because I was worried about losing income. Like many workers, I have bills to pay and cannot afford to miss work. My experience is not unique. Many workers are struggling with workplace safety concerns, lack of healthcare access, and financial stress while contract negotiations continue. As regents, you oversee the institutions that contract with Aramark. We're asking you to use your influence to ensure a fair resolution of our dispute, which provides workers with the dignity, safety, and support they deserve. Thank you.
The next speaker is Ana Martinez at podium A, followed by Joseph Starr. Please proceed to podium B.
Good afternoon, Chair and Regents. My name is Ana Martinez. I used to work for Aramark at Arizona State University, and I am also one of the organizers who was arrested while peacefully protesting outside ASU graduation on May 11th. I am here today because I know firsthand what workers are still going through on this campus. The people serving food at ASU are working hard every day, but many are struggling to survive. Workers are asking for something very basic: a living wage, stable hours, and dignity on the job. Right now, too many workers are living paycheck to paycheck, taking on second jobs, selling plasma, and doing whatever they can just to get by. These are the workers who keep this university running. They should not be working for a public university while still living in poverty. As a public institution, ASU and this board have a responsibility to ensure that the contractors it hires are providing decent jobs, not just securing lucrative contracts while workers are left behind. That responsibility ultimately sits with the Arizona Board of Regents. Instead of addressing these conditions, ASU chose to respond to peaceful protesters with arrest rather than holding its contractor accountable. ASU police arrested union organizers who were standing with workers and speaking out about these conditions. Meanwhile, UFA went on to renew its contract with Aramark for stadium concessions without any announcement or open bidding process that could have allowed for worker input. I want to be very clear. There is nothing wrong with demanding fairness. There is nothing wrong with workers organizing for dignity. And there is nothing wrong with speaking out about the conditions that are not sustainable. The question for this board is whether this is how you want your institutions to respond to worker concerns. This is not just about one protest or one arrest. It is about a broader failure to ensure that the people who keep this campus functioning are treated with respect and paid enough to live. ABOR's contractor policies at ASU and U of A have the ability to address these issues and de-escalate the situation. Workers should not have to choose between speaking up and being targeted, and they should not have to choose between working at a public university and living in poverty. Aramark is your contractor. Thank you.
The next speaker is Joseph Starr at podium B, followed by Jem Wolf-Schwager. Please proceed to podium A.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair and Regents. My name is Joseph. I'm a student at Arizona State University. I'm here today because as a student at the Tempe campus, I've been watching workers at ASU go through months of a labor dispute with their contractor, Aramark. As students, we rely on dining hall workers every single day. We see them early in the morning, late at night, and throughout the busiest parts of campus life. We know the work they do keeps this university running. What I've also seen is that many of these same workers are struggling. Students see workers struggling. Families see workers struggling. The broader community sees workers struggling. Month after month, we also see a contractor that has not reached a fair agreement with the people who keep campus dining services operating. At some point, this dispute becomes bigger than just one contract. It raises broader questions about responsibility and values, not just at ASU, but at U of A, where Aramark also employs hundreds of low-wage food service workers as part of its contract for stadium concessions. Is this the type of contractor you want representing Arizona's public universities? Is this consistent with the values that the Arizona Board of Regents claims to uphold? And is this how the people who serve students every day should be treated? As a student, I believe we should expect better for workers, for students, and for the university community as a whole. I'm asking you to use your role to ensure that Aramark is held accountable for the problems it is causing ASU students and workers alike. In turn, U of A should learn from these experiences by holding open and competitive bidding processes for its concessions contract that prioritizes fair labor standards and other policies. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jem Wolf-Schwager at podium A, followed by Alan Stant. Please proceed to podium B.
Hello. Chair Goodyear and the Board of Regents. My name is Jen Wolf-Schwager. I'm a researcher for Unite Here Local 11 and an incoming graduate student at Arizona State University. As a 2026 college graduate of ASU, I'm here to add another voice in support of ASU Aramark workers. I am also here to point out how Aramark's bad practices could not affect not just ASU, but U of A and how university procurement policies play a role. Over the past year, I've stood with Arizona State University dying workers at their rallies and in their bargaining sessions with Aramark. And time again, I've seen how the company refuses to meet workers' most basic demands for livable wages and benefits. It's this approach that has led workers to picket graduation, not because they want to be disruptive, but because as summer layoffs approach, labor actions are their only way of winning the wages they need. As Aramark's client, ASU and ABOR bear responsibility. Because the university failed to demand livable wage standards and other labor policies, workers have no choice but to fight publicly on campus to win what they deserve. ASU isn't the only school that has failed to hold Aramark accountable, though. At U of A, Aramark holds the contract for the stadium concessions, where some workers will make even less than they do at ASU. When the concessions contract was set to expire this summer, U of A extended it for a year without any public announcement or open bidding process that could have allowed for worker and community input. With U of A's contract now set to expire in summer 2027, we are calling on ABOR and U of A to take steps not to repeat recent mistakes. U of A's concession contract should be subject to an open and competitive bidding process that allows for community input and proper accountability. There should be fair wage standards, worker retention, and other labor policies in a bid to reduce the likelihood of the kind of worker unrest we're now seeing at ASU. No ABOR contractor, at least of all Aramark, deserves
Please
a rubber
conclude
stamp.
your remarks.
The next speaker is Alan Stant at podium B, followed by Eric Cadman. Please proceed to podium A.
Good afternoon, Chain and Regents. My name is Ellen Stant, and I work for Aramark at ASU University on the Tempe, Arizona campus. I am here today because after months of negotiations, Aramark workers are still waiting for a fair contract that would allow us to support ourselves and our families with dignity. I have shared my story with you several times, but when I started working for Aramark, I was unhoused. I came to this job hoping I would have my way out and that I would finally have the opportunity to get back on my feet. I was eventually able to get my own apartment through a shelter program, but I know now quickly everything I've worked for could just disappear. Now that this summer, my coworkers and I are not working and I have had to look for temporary work so I can afford my apartment, Aramark continues to drag this out. These negotiations, instead of agreeing to a fair contract with living wages. As Regents, I ask you to think about what this labor dispute means for workers like me. I am not asking for luxury. I am asking for stability. I'm asking for the ability to keep a roof over my head. I'm asking for the opportunity to work hard, to live in constant fear of returning back to the streets. Aramark operates on your campus and under your authority. The hardships workers are experiencing happening every day. I urge you to hold your contractor accountable for the way it's dragged out its labor dispute without selling a fair contract. The people you keep the campus running should be able to afford rent, pay their bills, and support themselves. I hope you agree. Thank you.
The next speaker is Eric Cadman at podium A, followed by Gabriela Carmona. Please proceed to podium B.
Good morning, Regents and Michael Crow. My name is Eric. I'm a food service worker and a proud member of Unite Here Local 11 at Arizona State University on the Tempe campus. I'm here today because workers have been fighting for months for a fair contractor with your contractor, Aramark. We're asking for fair wages that allow us to do more than survive, affordable healthcare, and a pathway to retire with dignity after years of service. What changed since the last time I was here in Tucson was that when we last came before you, the two union organizers were arrested while peacefully protesting outside of the ASU graduation on the 11th of May. Think about that for a moment. Workers have spent months asking Aramark to negotiate a fair contract. We have spoken at meetings, organized peacefully, and shared our stories like Ellen's. Yet, instead of pushing its contractor to settle this dispute, ASU chose to arrest people who are standing with workers and speaking out. That sends a troubling message. It tells workers that when we raise concerns about low wages, healthcare costs, and economic insecurity, the university's response is not to address the problem, but to silence those demanding change. After serving students so long, are we not members of the same university community as the rest of you? Are we not entitled to be part of the same public discourse as the rest of campus, which ABOR champions? The reality is that this labor dispute will not end until Aramark agrees to a fair contract. The rest did not solve the problem. Silencing workers will not solve the problem. Ignoring workers will not solve the problem. In fact, it is making it worse, and our union is not shying away from taking steps it deems necessary to defend our rights. Aramark is your contractor. This dispute is happening on your campuses. The responsibility to act does not belong solely to Aramark. It belongs to the institutions that continue to do business with him. I urge you to stop allowing this.
Please conclude your remarks.
Yes, I urge you to stop allowing this conflict to drag on. Hold your contractor accountable. Tell Aramark to settle this contract and treat its workers with the respect and dignity they deserve. Thank you.
The next speaker is Gabriela Carmona at podium B, followed by Natalie Dalton. Please proceed to podium A.
Buenos días, presidente y miembros de la Junta de Regentes. Mi nombre es Gabriela y he trabajado en Aramark de forma intermitente desde 2008. He dedicado muchos años a este empleo atendiendo a los estudiantes y formando parte de esta comunidad universitaria. Sin embargo, durante todo este tiempo no he contactado con un acceso constante a servicios de salud. En su lugar, me he visto obligada a viajar a México para recibir tratamiento médico, ya que es la única opción que me puedo permitir. Sigo sin poder costear las visitas a mi médico. Continué trabajando, incluso cuando sabía que algo no iba bien, porque sentía que no tenía otra opción. A principios de este año sufrí un colapso en el trabajo y estuve hospitalizada durante 3 semanas. Ahora me enfrento a facturas médicas que no puedo pagar. Sin aseguranza médica debo asumir yo misma todos los gastos. He tenido que pedirle a mis hijos a que me ayuden a cubrir la mitad de las facturas médicas, tan solo para poder empezar a pagarlas. Tras tantos años de arduo trabajo, nadie debería encontrarse en esta situación. Me veo obligada a elegir entre mi salud y mi sustento, o a depender de mis hijos para pagar de mis deudas. Se supone que los padres deben apoyar a sus hijos, no al revés. Como miembro de la Junta de Regentes, les insto a reflexionar detenidamente sobre el impacto de este conflicto ha tenido no solo en los trabajadores, sino también en los estudiantes, en la comunidad en general y en la propia reputación de la ASU. Las acciones de Aramark repercuten en ASU y en esa junta. Asimismo, le insto a considerar cómo la junta puede adoptar la cara al futuro políticas que garanticen una mayor transparencia en la selección de contratistas de la universidad y mejoren las condiciones de los trabajadores a fin de evitar ese tipo de conflictos laborales en el futuro. Les pido que utilicen su influencia y autoridad para instar a Aramark a resolver esta disputa con el respeto que se merecen. Gracias por su tiempo.
Good morning. My name is Gabriela, and I've worked for Aramark on and off since 2008. I've dedicated many years to this job, serving students and being part of the university community. In all that time, I've not had consistent access to healthcare. Instead, I've had to rely on traveling to Mexico to receive medical treatment because it's the only option I could afford. I still have not been able to afford the cost to see my doctor. I kept working even when I knew something wasn't right because I didn't feel like I had a choice. Earlier this year, I collapsed at work and I was hospitalized for 3 weeks. I'm facing medical bills that I cannot afford. Without health insurance, those costs fall entirely on me. I've had to ask my own children to help cover half of my medical bills just so I can begin to pay them off. After all these years of hard work, no one should be in this position. I'm having to choose between my health and my livelihood or relying on my children to cover medical debt. Parents are supposed to support their children, not the other way around. As regents, I encourage you to think carefully about the impact this dispute has, not only on workers, but also on students, the broader community, and the reputation of ASU itself. Aramark's actions reflect on ASU and this board. I urge you to think about how moving forward, the board can adopt policies that ensure more transparency in the selection of university contractors and improve conditions for workers so as to avoid this kind of labor unrest in the future. I ask you to use your influence and your authority to push Aramark to settle this dispute with the living wages and respect they deserve. Thank you.
The next speaker is Natalie Dalton at podium A, followed by Vicente Martinez. Please proceed to podium B.
Good afternoon, Chair and Regents. My name is Natalie Dalton, and I work for Aramark in the bakery at ASU. I am here today because workers are still waiting for a fair contract from your contractor, Aramark, and want to make sure that the Regents and U of A adopt more responsible practices moving forward. The last time I spoke to you, I shared that I am a single parent raising 2 young sons while going through a divorce. I have experienced homelessness before and work every day to make sure my family never has to go through that again. Today, we are at the start of the summer months with reduced hours. That fear has not gone away. Like many of my coworkers, I work hard every day and still worry about whether I will be able to keep up with the rent, bills, and cost of raising my children while these negotiations continue. As workers, we have spent months sharing our stories, attending bargaining sessions, speaking at meetings, and asking Aramark to negotiate a fair contract. Yet, instead of using its influence to push its contractor towards a settlement, ASU chooses to arrest people who were standing with workers and advocating for a resolution to this dispute. This is not a responsible approach to a labor dispute, looks like. Much of this fight could have been avoided if ASU simply took steps to hold its contractors accountable for the wage and benefit standards they offer to campus workers. Now we fear A of U may be making the same mistakes. Like at ASU, Aramark hosts the contract for stadium concessions at U of A, where some workers allegedly make even less than those of us at ASU. When the concessions contract was set to expire this summer, though U of A automatically renewed their contract for a year with no announcement or open bidding process. With just a year before the U of A contract expires again, we urge you not to repeat the same mistakes that led to our fight at ASU. Aramark needs to be held accountable through an open and competitive bidding process that allows for public input and demands labor practices that can reduce the likelihood of the kind of public fight workers are having to wage now at ASU. Thank you.
The next speaker is Vicente Martinez at podium B, followed by Angelica Delgado. Please proceed to podium A.
My name is Vicente Martinez. I work for Aramark at ASU in the Manzi Dining Hall. I am proud to serve the students and be part of this campus running. Conditions for Aramark continue to face extremely difficult conditions while contract negotiations are still going on top of my shifts at ASU. I've had to take on food delivery as a second job just to stay afloat. I work extra hours every week doing deliveries, and I have it also to donate plasma to cover my basic bills. Even with all that, I am still struggling. No one should have to risk their health or safety to earn a paycheck. No one should end up on the streets because they work 40 hours but still can't afford rent or donate plasma to be able to afford their bills. And no one should be arrested for standing with workers who are speaking about these issues. And yet here we are. As Regents, you have the responsibility to influence the institutions that contract with Aramark. If you want stability on campus and to avoid continued labor unrest, then this situation cannot continue as it is. We are asking you to take action and hold Aramark accountable. This contract can finally be resolved in a fair way. We are also urging you to learn from this experience at U of A, where Aramark holds another food contract to prevent these problems from spreading to do that. U of A needs to host an open competitive bidding process for the stadium concessions contract next year to hold Aramark accountable and help prioritize policy that will further prevent worker unrest. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Angelica Delgado at podium A.
Good morning, Chair and Regents. My name is Angelica Delgado, and I work for Aramark at Arizona State University on the Tempe campus. I'm here today because workers are still waiting for a fair contract from your contractor, Aramark. And now that the summer has begun, many of us are completely out of work or facing severely reduced hours. During the school year, many of us were already dealing with reduced hours across dining halls. Those cuts made it difficult to stay stable, even while working regularly. And now that campus operations slowed down for the summer, many workers have no income at all until August. Rent is still due, bills are still due, and basic expenses have not stopped, but our paychecks have. On top of that, reduced hours during the school year already put workers at risk of losing access to healthcare benefits. Now, with no work over the summer, that instability becomes even more severe. Workers are being forced to figure out how to survive weeks or months without income, while this contract remains unsolved. No one who works hard serving this university should be put in a position where they are worried about how to survive during breaks and summer. My coworkers and I are not asking for anything beyond what is fair. Stable hours, livable wages, and access to healthcare we can rely on year-round. We are asking you to hold Aramark accountable and push for a resolution of this dispute so workers are not left without income while our fight continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Goodyear.
Thank you, everyone, for your remarks. The board will now convene an executive session. Public session is now in recess. We are back. Good afternoon. Welcome again, everyone, for attending today's meeting. The meeting of the Arizona Board of Regents was called to order earlier this morning. Again, a link to the live stream of the public event is available on the board's website under ABOR Live or by going to YouTube and searching for ABOR News. Today's public session is scheduled to last until 5:30 p.m. I would like to start with a sad announcement. On behalf of the board, I would like to offer our condolences to former Regent Boyce and to his family on his passing. Regent Boyce was appointed to the board in 2002 by former Governor Jane Hull and was a steadfast champion of higher education. According to myth and legend, Regent Boyce is more responsible for President Crow being here than any other individual. So we are grateful to him up to a point for that. And
he was tremendously influential on many things.
yes, he was. So we extend our condolences to his family on his passing. As we begin today, I would like to introduce, we will have 3 new regents effective very shortly. Regent designees Dr. Michelle Halyard and Steve Peru, as well as student regent designee Aidan Kane-Vo. Dr. Halyard is a nationally recognized radiation oncologist, academic leader, and nonprofit founder with more than 30 years of experience in healthcare practice, medical education, research, and strategy. She served on the Mayo Clinic staff and holds the academic rank of Professor of Radiation Oncology. Welcome, Dr. Halyard. We have introduced Steve Peru before, but we like him so much we're going to do it again. He brings more than 4 decades of experience in Arizona local government, education, and nonprofit leadership. He has served Coconino County in progressively senior roles, including as county manager and special assistant for strategic projects and partnerships. He is also a proud lumberjack and graduate of NAU. Steve, welcome once again. Glad to be on your home turf. Aidan Vo is pursuing a Master of Science and PhD in biomedical engineering at ASU, from which he earned a Bachelor of Science in Engineering and graduated summa cum laude. As an undergraduate student, he served as senator and chairman of government operations for ASU student government. Aidan, welcome. You are up for a vote tomorrow, we believe, on the floor of the Senate. Yes. So we are very hopeful that that goes swimmingly, and welcome. We're really happy to have you. So the next subject I'd like to address is the successful completion of our commencement strategies or commencement ceremonies at ASU, NAU, and U of A, celebrating the class of 2026. We have a short video we would like to show. So many of us went to at least one or several graduations, and they're the best part of the job. The ceremonies are a powerful reflection of the core mission of our work. Each graduate represents our commitment to supporting student success and preparing graduates to contribute to Arizona's workforce and civic life. The strength of this graduating class reflects the strength of Arizona's public universities. These graduates are ready to step into careers, continue their education, and serve their communities in ways that will shape Arizona's future. I also want to recognize our university presidents for a job well done. Through their leadership, our institutions continue to graduate students who are prepared to succeed in their careers and life. Thank you also for the regents who participated in ceremonies across the state and represented the board during this important milestone for our students and their families. Your presence and remarks helped reinforce the value of a degree from our public universities and the opportunities it creates. Congratulations to the class of 2026, and thank you to our regents and university leaders for your continued commitment to student success. Now, we are in the home of President Cruz Rivera, and this is a different venue than we normally have. Your team has done a splendid job preparing us and preparing this room for the large group here. So thank you for hosting us. Thank you for all the things that you do to make the experience here first rate. And please give us a few comments.
Well, it's always a privilege to host the Board of Regents here at NAU. We are happy to do so. And I wanted to take my time, if it's possible, to address an important issue that I have yet to resolve. And it's important to me that I resolve this. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So several weeks ago, NAU sent Regent Duval properly in Tucson. Sent him off properly in Tucson. I was supposed to be there. I got sick and missed it. And it has eaten at me ever since. So I am using the last minutes of this, his last public session to make it right. Now, the public session is only a couple of hours away and executive session is tomorrow. And I know everyone's eyeing the door. It's a beautiful summer day here. So I'll keep this, my remarks shorter than one of Regent Duval's impromptu brief remarks. Regent Duval is the only person in Arizona history appointed to this board by both a Democrat and a Republican. Janet Napolitano appointed him out of loyalty. Doug Ducey, the man he ran against for governor and lost to, appointed him out of what I can only assume was punishment. Two parties, two governors. The man is a gifted politician, which makes the next part strange because politicians are almost never forthright. Regent Duval is reliably, admirably forthright, but only ever when it works against him. Now hold that thought. I'll make it make sense in a minute. He also co-chaired the committee that hired me. So me in this chair is partly his doing. Today I get to return the favor and put him in the hot seat. Picture the depths of the pandemic. After 9 months of house arrest in New York City, leading the academic research and student affairs of the nation's largest urban public university, I had fled home to Puerto Rico to work remotely and remember what air felt like. Somewhere in there came the call that would decide whether I even joined the candidate pool to become the 17th president of NAU. A conversation with the two co-chairs of the search, Regent Duval and former Regent Lyndall Manson. But first, Regent Duval had to reach me to set it up. That did not go well. The calls kept dropping. He was trying to nail down the logistics of what turned out to be one of the most consequential conversations of my career, and he could not get a full sentence in before the signal died. And that's tough for Regent Duval. When Regent Duval finally got through, he gave me exactly one instruction. Get off the beach and find a good signal, buddy. I wondered at the time, how did he know I was at the beach? Here's how. Regent Duval co-chaired the White House Interagency Task Force on Puerto Rico. He has studied that island for decades, its politics, its infrastructure, and apparently its citizens' relationship with the nearest body of water. He knew I would be at the beach before I did. He knows Puerto Rico about as well as any gringo can possibly know it, and I mean that with love. Now, the thing you were holding that I mentioned earlier, let me get to that. During the search, I had learned that someone was quietly reaching out to big-time New York City politicians about me. A breach of protocol. I was annoyed enough to flag it to the search consultant. I just did not know who had done it. After a couple of days of finalist interviews in Phoenix, the two co-chairs drove Rima and me up to Flagstaff, the day I was presented to the campus as the sole finalist. Somewhere on that drive up the hill, the culprit confessed. It was him. He had called an old friend in New York to ask around about me, and that friend called my boss, the chancellor of the City University of New York, to ask, did you know your provost is job hunting? Good thing he did. So there I was in a car with the very man I had reported, listening to him turn himself in, unprompted, with the job already his to help give me. Other politicians bury the things they got away with. Regent Duval hands them to you with the receipt. Forthright, right when it hurts him. Told you. The record speaks for itself, though it rarely gets the chance because he speaks for it first. His contributions to Arizona's Medicaid system, the Teachers Academy, the Institute for Civil Discourse, and on and on and on. Real institutions, 20-year payoffs, everyone. This is also a man who has never met a microphone he did not like or a camera he could not find in a crowded room. The difference is that the headlines are earned. The work comes first, the press conference second. Most people get that backwards. He never does. I also needed someone to explain, or I need someone to explain the hair. He likes the Grand Canyon. He hikes the Grand Canyon for fun. I hiked Humphreys once, tore a ligament, and I am still in physical therapy. That I have accepted, but the full silver head of hair I covet openly. In Puerto Rico, Celia Cruz called her husband, Pedro Knight, cabecita de algodón, little cotton head, for hair of that hue. Regent Duval, there is only one thing left to say, azúcar. And for the uninitiated on Celia Cruz, that's Celia's catchphrase, sugar. Puerto Rico has given the world many great exports, culture, rum, legendary athletes, and if the board will permit me, the occasional talented university president.
Bad one.
One of those I can hand you today from my own collection. I have been saving it up for 5 years for a special day, and the day has arrived. My Ron del Barrilito, the finest rum the island makes, aged slow, the way everything worth having is. More than 4 decades of honest public service should be toasted with the real thing. Public service is the highest thing a person can do with a life. Regent Duval made it look like a calling because for him, it was one. Arizona is stronger for it. And because of it, NAU got a president, brilliant, beloved, impossibly humble. I would never embarrass the man by saying his name. We have no glasses to raise. If we did, I would ask you to raise them to Regent Duval. Salud. A.
Can I turn it back to the chair?
Thank you, President Cruz Rivera. Next, the board is asked to approve the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda include items 5.1 through 5.18. Does anyone have conflict to declare on items 5.1 through 5.18 scheduled for consent? Hearing none, I move that the board approve items 5.1 to 5.18 as listed on the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, the motion carries. Next is a discussion of legislation that will affect the university enterprise. Executive Director Chad Sampson will give us a brief update.
Thank you, Chair. This is very brief. They are currently looking and voting on the budget. All eyes of this board, along with other university leaders, are looking at it now. We expect the budget to be finalized and to the legislature to sign a die on Friday, at which point we, of course, will be updating the board on the outcomes of that. And with that, that is my review at this time, Chair.
Thank you, Chad. Moving to item 4.1 on our agenda. Award of the Regents Medal to Christine Wilkinson. Regent Duval, I will turn this over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is only one Christine Wilkinson. She is singular in the history of Arizona State University, and I know everyone is probably familiar with her bio, but it really is, it begins, she is literally grew up on the campus. Her father was a 45-year leader of multiple sports at ASU. So as a girl, she knew it intimately well, and she's gone on not just to get her degrees from ASU, but to serve in virtually every job at Arizona State University, but for the presidency itself. I mean, it spans dean of students, head of alumni relationships, obviously liaison to the Board of Regents, admissions, athletic director 3 times. She has done it all, but that's not the full story. In addition, Christine has been on virtually every board that matters in the city of Phoenix and state of Arizona. She was recognized as Woman of the Year by Valley Leadership, which summarized her many contributions. We actually first met Christine, you'll recall, when we were on the Valley Big Brothers board together, and it was one of your, I don't know, 12 or 15 areas of board service. The Regents Medal is seldom given, and that makes it even more special. It is a high standard. It is the highest award that we can give for leadership to our universities, and I can think of no one whose life, whose character, whose contribution, whose commitment, and whose personal friendship is more deserving of recognition of the Regents Medal, Christine, than you. And we are grateful for your many, many, many decades and commitment and love for this institution, which is contagious, and for your service to our universities. Christine, thank you.
I would also like to recognize Dr. Wilkinson and honor her lifetime of service to ASU. Christine's career reflects more than longevity. It reflects sustained and excellent leadership at the highest levels of one of the nation's largest public universities. Regent Duval listed the many roles that you have played at ASU over the years, so I won't recount them all, but they are considerable and shows both your versatility and your amazing work ethic. You have helped shape the direction of the university, providing trusted counsel on major decisions and helping guide ASU through periods of significant growth and change. You've also been a steady and trusted partner for the Arizona Board of Regents. You've built a reputation as a collaborative leader, someone who brings people together, supports others, and leaves everything you touch stronger and better than you found it. You are a trailblazer who opened doors for others and helped expand opportunity for the next generation of leaders in higher education. Your impact extends far beyond ASU through decades of service to civic and community organizations across Arizona. On behalf of the Arizona Board of Regents, I want to thank you for your extraordinary leadership and service and congratulate you on this well-deserved recognition. President Crow?
Christine, as usual, is leaving this role, but not leaving ASU. So she's going to continue in a role of advising us and helping us. But what I will say is that Christine was on and a part of the process that brought me here. Christine was a person I've known for 35 years. She is integral to everything that we do. It is literally unbelievable how she is able to bring a spirit of let's make it happen, a spirit of solving the problem, a spirit of kindness, a spirit of respect to everyone, every problem, every process, every challenge, everything that we faced. She's been in all the meetings, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meetings at ASU that we've been involved in, very complicated decisions. When I first started, she was responsible for student success and student life, which is a very, very complicated thing at a university of our size, with tragedies, with problems, with complexities, with everything that you can imagine. We had a history of very significant complexities associated with certain aspects of the way that student life had evolved at ASU. And so she has been the utility infielder capable of fielding any ball in any angle, at any speed, at any location, and help making the play. And that's going to be big shoes to fill. We have her I think we're hiring 14 people, but one of the persons that's taking over some of her responsibilities is here, who the board will meet. But what I will say is we'll obviously recognize Christine, in the full glory of her commitment. She got her bachelor's degree at ASU, her doctoral degree at ASU. She did drift off to Berkeley for her master's degree and happened to be there in the years of the years when Berkeley was at the most complicated moment in its history, but nonetheless came back and has served the university, as has her family. So her family has been involved in a senior role at ASU in one way or another for almost 100 years. And so in a university as young as us, I mean, it's hard to believe that Christine is not in many ways the embodiment of ASU. Her cars are maroon from time to time. And what I'll say, and I'll say this obviously when we get together, the University Medal is a small recognition for a person who has had, I think, more impact on the institution than anyone in the last many decades. And I say that with all sincerity because it is a very complicated and difficult institution. Very complicated and very difficult. And Christine was able to bring a kind of focused attention, commitment, stability on all levels. And so we've all learned greatly from you, Christine, and the University Medal is well-deserved. She also hates anyone talking about her. Is this not correct? So I will stop there and then we'll have a huge party where we will only talk about her.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Christine.
Thanks. Thank you, President Crow. I move that the board award the Regents Medal to Dr. Christine Wilkinson as described in the executive summary. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Christine, please come forward so that we may present you the Regents Medal.
We should have a dirge playing in the back.
Yeah.
This isn't like a ceremony where I put it around your neck. I just give it to you in a box and you can unwrap it yourself. But congratulations. Let's take a picture. You're in the middle.
Yeah.
I would only say that I think the most important board that the governor appoints are all of you who are citizen leaders who really believe in advancing education. And so it's just been a blessing to work with you and the people who have been here before. because if you won't do it, no one will. So keep charging ahead and helping us advance. Future leaders. Thank you very, very much.
More segments like that on the agenda, please.
Yeah.
Our next item is a presentation on student wellness. Nothing matters more to this board than our student safety and their success. And the two go together. Today isn't about any one campus or any one organization. It's about meeting a new federal standard and holding our own culture to a high one. The board sets the policy, and our three excellent university presidents lead the work. Hazing and high-risk drinking can happen in any group. This past year drew attention to several fraternities. This isn't about fixing something that's broken. The universities have worked on this issue for years under the board's direction, and our job is to keep that work improving and current. So
Regent Fitzgerald will start us off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chair. This is, as he said, this is something that the board really values. And I've had the privilege to do some of this work as a student regent to be going along with that commitment to student wellness, as well as expanding kind of what that means in terms of student wellness. It is not a one-time initiative. This has been going on far before I got on the board. And we really try to make it rooted in listening. I think that's one of the things that I was able to bring forward is hearing the student voice, going out, talking to students, having listening sessions, and using those student voices to inform our decisions. We're talking to students, not administrators, and it started with food and housing insecurity, it shifted on to mental health, and now we are on this student safety topic as well. What we're having today is not going to be a vote or a policy for action, but rather a conversation informed as like from what we have heard from students and the things that they wanted to bring forward as important. With that context, let me turn it back over to Chad.
Thank you very much, Regent. In addition to this board's continued focus on student safety and student well-being, it is one of the things this board talks the most about. And when there is concerns around it, is that it brings the attention of all regions quickly to us. In addition to that, we have some new, relatively recent federal and state reporting standards. I want to first point out that all of our universities are meeting these standards. They move quickly since the federal law was passed in 2024 to evaluate hazing, put it into their reporting, and they publish that reporting for all to see. The whole purpose of the federal reporting is to make sure that there's transparency around this. Well, I will tell you, this board and the universities that it governs have been committed to transparency around this issue for a very long time, and our presidents are really committed. But what this does allow us to do as a board and as along with the public is have a focus on this when needed and when necessary. So we have for the first time, a federal definition, which standardized definitions across all institutions in all states. And then it requires public transparency, and we will continue to use this report as part of our ongoing efforts to improve and to ensure our students' safety. With that, I'll turn it back to Regent Fitzgerald.
Thank you. I will keep this brief so that we can, is this one mine? It's not in my.
Oh, no, this is me.
Okay.
I will take it back from Regent Fitzgerald. One of the things we are doing here is trying to define the problem and the scale of the challenge. Our universities are not unique. They face a lot of the same pressures and challenges as any university across the country. Indeed, I think they meet the challenge very well. As the chair has said, this is about continuous and incremental improvement. and the board maintaining a weather eye on this as it is required to under its fiduciary responsibilities.
Thank you. That's the one that I have. So as we are talking to students, we took a very human approach to it. The first listening session on this topic was held at U of A, which Regent Felipe Garcia was able to attend and talk to these student leaders about belonging, tradition, and just what the culture in general looks like there. And then I had the privilege to sit in on the NAU session, which was just incredible. I've been in so many meetings and so many like think tank sorts of groups, and I have never been in a room that is so uplifting, encouraging, and forward thinking. There were student leaders from our student government, ASNAU, athletics, Greek life, sports clubs. It was really a mixed bag, which was cool to see all of those different disciplines kind of come together. We have a forthcoming session at ASU, and I got word today from Roxanne Murphy, who is a great ally in doing this work at the board office. And I got word from her today that the IRB was approved to do the listening session at ASU. Being that these are mostly student leaders, it's not very representative statistically of the entire student body. These findings are directional and will be paired with the data that is already collected to kind of sharpen the picture on what's really going on. Both of the campuses shared common themes, as Felipe and I kind of talked about the messages that we heard, the conversations that we had. What we really heard is the lack of clarity for students. Students don't know what to do when a peer is in distress, because you hear all these different things, and especially in a university setting, students are afraid of getting in trouble, or they're scared of being kicked out of school, losing their scholarship. And as we talked to administration, we really heard about how care is the leading factor when going through whether that's a conduct process or just an intervention with that student. It's not meant to punish students. It's meant to care for them, show them, give them resources. And so what we really heard too is that leaders and the students and the peers are what carries the culture, right? This isn't something that the board can do by itself. This isn't like an initiative that we can just deploy and it's going to solve all the problems. This is something that students need to be in on. They need to be invested on, because that's where change happens, is when we are in small groups, when you're hanging out with your friends and you're learning information from them. That's how word travels, especially on trickier topics like this. One of the practical threads that we really heard is some clarification on Good Samaritan protections. So again, students are afraid of seeking help because out of fear of getting in trouble. There is a state hazing clause for those who call 911 in these situations, but students see them as invisible, confusing. They're behind all this super complicated language. So by hopefully making those medical amnesty and Good Samaritan protections visible and more like in plain language for students to understand, we're hoping that that is one of the levers that we would be able to potentially deploy. These are just some of the quotes that we got from these listening sessions. We have target the leaders of the organizations to help sway what traditions look like. And again, these are coming from students. These are students who want to lead the way for their peers. They want to be a mentor for incoming freshmen in their organizations and clubs. Another one is, I want this to not just be another campaign. I want it to actually shift culture, because I believe that students are tired of having stuff created around, and they want to see actual shifts. And a lot of, again, that conversation led back to community. Another, hold on, sorry. Okay, I don't have separate notes for this one, so I will speak off the slide. Again, more things that we are seeing is that the barrier is acting in the moment, that it's lack of clarity in those situations where adrenaline is high, you aren't sure what to do. Being able to have a clear action plan for students to be able to follow that makes sense and is easily enacted is super important. Again, with those Good Samaritan protections. Sorry. Yeah, so again, some emerging directions, make help seeking safe and clear, make students feel comfortable to utilize those resources to ask for help so that that care intervention can take place. Investing in leaders to carry the message. And that's not university leaders. That's not 40-year-olds, respectfully, that are like leading the conversation in these things. That is the captains of teams. That's the club presidents. That's the seniors and the coaches that are doing things day to day to make people feel comfortable. One of the things that came up was sort of like a fire drill emergency routine that's tailored to that specific community, right? When the fire alarm goes off, you know exactly what to do because it's been practiced so many times. By doing that re-pattern communication, reiterating the fact that this is what you do when you are in this situation, it makes it so much clearer and it leads to that peer-led prevention and intervention in these cases. We heard a lot about like risk manager roles beyond just Greek life into clubs, into residence halls, and to adapt these trainings to be shorter, more mobile, because as someone who's been a part of a club leadership, there's so much information that's thrown at you. So that's why we really are hearing the short, more mobile, more frequent, more student-friendly intervention to make it second nature when you have to ask for help. And I believe that's back to you.
Thank you, Regent Fisher. In addition to having the tremendous amount of work and time spent by our student regents listening to other students on our campuses, staff realizes that we're not the only individuals in the United States looking at this issue. And so we've gone out for best practices. What do other boards who are focused on safety doing? And what is the impetus? And specifically, two very recent mostly recent boards have looked at this. First of all, the Louisiana State Board of Regents has been required by their legislature to do a study on this. That study is revealing that, as you would expect, a lot of the things that our universities are already doing, which is prevention, being transparent, having time with the students and mentors that are older. Those are the things that are coming out of the Louisiana board. Penn State, after the death of a student, actually set up a very specific protocol that required staff monitoring of social events, fraternity and sorority chapter risk management plans, deferred and alcohol free recruitment, and a public chapter of their fraternities scorecard tracking GPA violations and conduct. The point of that is about education, and they saw grades go up in all of these areas, but really what the model does is it focuses on student health and belonging as much as it does about violations. So as the board looks at its policy recommendations over the coming months and meetings, this is something that we think will be instructive to us. With all of the work that has been done, there are a number of areas that this board may wish to explore as it looks to update its policies. The first is to recognize behavior and culture, and how do we change that? The second is how to make sure our university's policies are up to date on this and they are in compliance with the federal law, but how can we be even better in our structures and rules? And then finally is to look at consistency across our system. Our three universities have their own cultures, their own ways of doing things, but there should be a backbone across all three that prioritizes student safety and a culture of no hazing, regardless of the organization you're looking at. With that, Chair, over to you for any questions.
All right. So are there any questions or comments from the board on this particular subject? I know Regent Brewster.
I guess I would, thank you, Chair. And again, Jaden, thank you for the work done by the student regents on this, because again, any tragedy needs to be avoided. Any incident that can be avoided needs to be avoided. And as parents, as administrators, as students, data will help us. And what I like about where we're trying to go is to remove the anecdotes, to try to not deal with supposition, to try to, categorize, one club or one organization, fraternity, club, sport, anything. The data will help us here. And Chair, I'm really hopeful as we keep working towards this, that with those federal standards, with the great work we're looking at other universities, the data and the opportunity to train and continue that training through the evolution of somebody on a college campus, whether they're a freshman or a senior, will be a hopeful stop in some of these issues. So again, I think we've got the right formula coming together. I'm glad to see the federal piece come to this conversation, because again, we owe it to use the data to get things done. Thank you, Chair.
Are there other comments from other regions? Oh, Regent Duvall.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Couple things. First, I want to make, lend support. We understand what energy, vitality, and retention impacts of Greek life. Greek life is a wonderful component to our campuses and obviously need to support it. But we do need to assure safety. And so exploring how we do both is important. And we also must find strategies that protect confidentiality of students. And I know the staff is thinking about a lot of that. And one of the things I hope we're going to think a lot about is technology, because, students they have their phones with them all the time. I'm sure others have had this experience. I mean, my mom wore Life Alert, until her last days. And, there are ways in which you can anonymously communicate concerns that protects confidentiality, but also creates an opportunity to remedy a high risk situation. I don't know if that's specifically the right answer, but I do believe that technology, phones, which is so embedded in the way we do things, along with group activities, there are some protocols I think we can lay down where we can support Greek life and make it safer, and in so doing, keep the vitality that they bring to our campuses.
Anything else? Well, Regent Fisher, we want to thank you, and Regent Garcia. He's not here with us today, but the two of you have put in an awful lot of hours and become subject matter experts in the time that you have dedicated to this. And so we are really grateful for all that you have done on this score. And so with, this is not an action item, but with the board's consent, I'd like to direct staff to continue working with our presidents to review our code of conduct policy against the new federal law and bring back recommendations. If there are actions that we can take that will help, we will do so. Thank you. Our next presentation is on workforce alignment. We will, presenting will be Brad Kendricks from the ABOR staff. Brad, welcome. I didn't know Andrew would be with you. Andrew Comrie, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Regents. Good afternoon, Presidents. So we are here today, as you mentioned, to talk about workforce alignment. So I will remind the board that when we came together at the April meeting, we spent some time unpacking the university academic portfolios in order to look at how programs across the wide variety of types of programs and titles of programs actually cluster together and are managed by the universities in ways, kind of how to think about them, how to think about student choice in that context. So we thought that it was a natural progression to move that conversation on and take that same kind of view looking across the university portfolio, but to do so in a way that aligns what the universities offer with the careers that are growing inside Arizona. So we're going to spend a little time unpacking what those portfolios look like, what we can tell, some of the catches in that data, but what it should give you is a good sense of directionality about how we think about these things and how well the university offerings align, as well as opportunities to think about how we can do things to improve that alignment and make sure that the students are well prepared to go into the places where there are jobs. There we go. So the first thing that's worth dwelling on for a moment before we go into this is that workforce prep isn't the only thing that our universities do. Like, it is important. We could probably set up a number of different public purpose legs for the university system, but for purposes of today, we have several. We've got the workforce preparation. There are very few people who go to college that do not say they would like to have a job afterwards. So we have to focus on the practical reality that this is a pathway towards a long and engaging career. That said, universities are also engaging in research and innovation, creating the spaces and the expertise to be able to have intellectual property research, things that move fields forward and move technology forward. And the last piece is that universities develop that civic and cultural value, both on campus and through the graduates that they have, that make places worth living in to begin with. So all of these things are equally important. For today's purposes, we're focusing on the workforce element of it, because that's, again, the piece that we are focusing on here. The other thing that I will probably say several times in today's presentation, and that is that the universities don't manufacture enrollment. Students decide what they want to study. That comes down to what they're interested in and what's appealing and what the job market is like and what the trends are. I don't know a 12-year-old that doesn't want to be a YouTuber. I don't know that that will inform their choices to some degree. That will not necessarily inform the jobs that exist when they graduate college. So all of these things are held in tension and come together as they make decisions and the universities offer degrees. So another thing to note is that Arizona is not a stagnant economy. It's not a thing that's holding still. It's not a thing that's falling. Arizona continues to accelerate, and specifically is accelerating in 4 areas that are all doing so with different reasons. The first one that gets the most headlines is around semiconductor and advanced technology. So those the big headline in Metro Phoenix, at least, is TSMC and the growth in the semiconductor ecosystem. But there are plenty of other STEM-related demand drivers in Metro Phoenix. I would also be remiss if I didn't note AI as a functional layer of all of this. It's a thing that we talk about a lot. You will not see anywhere in this conversation an AI job, because AI is fed from lots of different types of tech-adjacent jobs. So it's just worth something kind of holding in your head as we think about this. The next one we'll talk about is the healthcare system expansion. Now, it's not that healthcare is growing technologically, it's that healthcare is growing because Arizona is growing. Like, we're projected to have another, 2 million people by 2040 in Arizona. So that demand itself is creating a pipeline of need in the health-related fields. I then moved to behavioral health, which, again, a different set of drivers there. There is no county in Arizona that is not classified as a high need area for behavioral health professionals. So this is a place where the workforce does have an acute need, and it's not necessarily driven by technology advancement. It's not driven by growth. It's driven by the fact that the workforce actually needs meaningful bolstering, and soon. And the last piece we'll put there is kind of an obvious one around infrastructure and housing, where the growth and demand and all of those things that we've talked about also lead to jobs in things like planning and construction trades and all of the infrastructure that comes with a dynamically growing state. Another thing that's worth noting as we frame all of this is that ABOR is part of a much bigger and complicated system. So on the front end, Arizona's workforce is fed by a number of pathways. The universities are one of the biggest of those pathways in terms of providing graduates that lead into the workforce. But there are other non-A-board university providers and specialized higher education institutions in the state. There are out-of-state online providers that Arizona residents will participate in. There's our community college partners who provide degrees in targeted areas. But the thing that I think is worth noting is that a lot of these jobs are filled by people on the job who promote in and get additional skills through the course of their careers, as well as the in-migration of people from other states that come in with the skills that are necessary in order to fill those positions. The thing that's not depicted here is that that workforce bucket also is constantly emptying out. And that emptying out comes from retirements. It comes from burnout. It comes from advances and changes in industry. So throughout this presentation, we're going to be talking about both sides. It's how we fill as well as how we refill what the workforce is ultimately needing. And I think this is the last framing slide, but let's talk about what we're going to do here today. So this is a big and complex space. It's hard to capture all of it together. What we're going to focus on is things that are happening on the ground in Arizona. So what we're marrying together are jobs local to Arizona, as well as programs for people that are local to Arizona. That means we're looking at on-campus students, and we're looking at online students who are Arizona residents. It would be unfair to not note that that excludes a whole lot of students that our universities serve who are living in other states and who travel other pathways. Those students are not outside of this conversation. They just enter in through other pieces of it. So by way of shortcut and alignment, we're just focusing on the things that are tangibly on the ground here. And to that end, let's look at what our universities produce. The pipeline is pretty solid. We have 41,000 back in 2024, the last time this data was pulled, graduates that meet that definition of being Arizona-based students. The bulk of those students at 24,000 are coming from Arizona State, but strong regional and backup positions with the other two universities. While the bulk of these new grads are coming through bachelor's pathways, it's important to note that master's and doctoral degrees are also important. When we start mapping these and connecting them to the different occupational fields that we're looking to fill, you'll see that some of those are specialized pathways and that this is an important piece. So now what we do here is we are taking all of the fields that are what we call zip codes, all of our university fields of study, and we're mapping those against what we call SOC codes, which are our workforce fields, in order to get a sense of how big our graduate population is and how that's feeding into the workforce and the dynamics that are there. So we've divided this into two different buckets. If you read from left to right, that's the number of annual openings in Arizona. So the further right you go on the chart, the bigger a field, the more graduates that we need or the more job openings that there are. If you read from bottom to top, that gives you a sense of the annual replacement rate. So that is how fast a field is turning over. So how many new workers are needed in that field. And we've divided it into halves because the top half are those fields that have higher than average or kind of top level turnover, which tells you that one of the primary drivers in those fields, and what do we have there? Life sciences, community and social services, education, business and management are primarily driven by industry dynamics. So it's the workforce, it's wages, it's retention, it's demographic changes that are driving the unusually high number of annual openings. The bottom ones, like architecture and engineering, computer sciences and math, health services, those are things that have relatively low turnover in the field, but that still have strong openings, telling us that it's more of a production problem where the universities and other providers need to get more people into the field, not because there's a lot of people exiting the field that we need to work with.
This is where there's devil is in the details, no reference to ASU here, that these are big clumps like healthcare. You all know about the nursing shortage, and yet that is it within the overall healthcare bucket here. So healthcare might show up as having modest turnover, but then certain professions within healthcare have much higher turnover. So be aware that these are macro categories and that it all depends on the very specific profession within those categories as to what's going on for any particular job or degree.
So that said, we'll dive into some of those career categories. So what this is showing you are the Arizona-based grads from all three of our institutions in each of these fields. The color coding in the bars show the difference between bachelor's, master's, and doctoral graduates in each of the main fields. The management pathway is the largest, education being second largest on those by number of graduates. The little diamonds there, the black one are the replacements. So that's the number of openings read from top to bottom because of turnover in the field. The additional on top of that to the little clear diamonds are the number of projected growth in the field. So if you look at the distance between the two, that is growth of total openings. But as you can see, the story about how our graduates stack against overall need varies a good deal. So we're going to dig into some of those in a little bit more detail just to talk about those dynamics and how they inform our discussion.
And it's worth noting because this looks like a large gap in some areas, let's say the management and business on the left between what we produce and what the state needs. Remember that a lot of the job openings are not entry-level jobs. They're also middle management and senior jobs, and those are not the things our graduates would typically go into. So the sort of right answer, if you want, is not to completely fill every bucket. It's to get the proportions in about roughly the right place.
And it's also worth noting that it's not completely the university system's job to fill all of these holes. So it's not a missed target as much as it is giving you a sense of directional alignment. So we're going to dig into 3 different fields that we've already called out a little bit because it's worth noting what some of the trends are in these spaces and what that ultimately means. First off, we have healthcare, where you've got 9,700 openings per year and growing by 3,000 jobs per year. That is pretty dynamic growth. It's something like a 4.5% turnover rate. This is not a place where we have an unusual number of people retiring or leaving the field, but we just have continued demand in that field. So this is a place where we talk a lot about the capacity of the system to be able to generate graduates and be able to feed those opportunities. When we look at behavioral health, there we have 4,800 new openings and very slow growth, but it is by far the highest turnover rate of any of the fields that are that we've looked at 9.2% per year. So that means that there's about 4,400 people in the behavioral health field who leave their jobs each year who need to be replaced regardless of the need for new demand in that area. The levers for fixing those things, that has to do with job conditions. It has to do with training requirements, credentialing, pay. Those are not things that the university system can directly solve. They're things that we need to be aware of as students make the choices that they're going to make, because there's other levers that fix those things. The last one here is around computer science and math, and that one sort of splits the difference, where we have a 5.6% replacement rate on 6,400 openings. There's solid growth in the field. There's also solid turnover in the field, but that growth and turnover are sitting next to 50,000 announced new jobs, and the need to really be able to focus there and look at how a variety of career fields are all sort of feeding into this domain that might not have been sort of traditionally aligned. So looking at each of these, another important element to think about as we think about workforce is that when we look at a field at a macro level, we can talk about healthcare grads, but there's actually lots of different types of things under the surface, types of careers. So if you look inside the healthcare bucket, registered nurses are by far the biggest source of demand that's there. So you have 2 sets of bars. Again, the copper shaded bars are the number of graduates we have at each of the degree levels, while the black and gray bars show the number of replacement openings due to people leaving the field versus growth openings. And each one of those has a little bit of a different dynamic. And also there's different pathways to each of them. So with registered nurses, we are not the only providers. We're one of the largest providers. This data is a little bit dated, and our universities have actually put concerted effort into growing this pipeline through the university system. So getting more people through a credential pathway and into placements. We're really limited only by the constraints of clinical placements and the amount of capacity it takes to get folks through. You look at things like the physician pipeline, that's a different story because it's highly regulated. It's highly constrained in terms of pipeline to get students in. It's highly constrained in terms of clinical opportunities. And that demand all has to be met through production that we can put through. So it's worth noting the differences and the levers that we have in order to address some of these gaps and how widely they vary across the different subfields. You look at business and management, and again, we have a whole range of things that fall into that bucket. So there's general and operation managers, which is the biggest sort of career classifications here. But this field also includes very specific things like financial managers and IT system managers. And you have different levels of match in each of those based on both priority and interest. So you're looking at things like IT systems managers, and we are almost completely satisfying that workforce demand through people studying those fields at the universities. But then you look at general and ops managers, and there's a big gap there. But that's not necessarily, again, a gap in actual production. It's a gap in terms of all of the different pipelines that feed those fields. And what we do definitely helps people with career mobility, but getting whatever your degree was in doesn't necessarily line up to when those businesses make the decision to move you forward. It's also worth noting here, and we'll note again, I think many people in this room probably have careers that would be classified as general and operations management, business management. And I'm guessing many of them did not major in accounting or finance or business in the same way that I did. So as a result, I think that's an illustration of the fact that a lot of these careers don't map cleanly. And what we are looking at is sort of the crudest possible mapping of degree intent to working in field. But the reality of workforce is that it's far more dynamic. People move around in ways that are not predictable. And all we're looking to do is that make sure that we have options that reliably align with where the workforce is telling us things need to be and where students have shown interest. The last piece here is computer and math openings. Again, we've got strong production and software development, but what you're also seeing is varying levels of engagement at different levels across the different types of fields that are here. This is one where we're actively seeing a lot of flux because with the emergence of AI and the changing of field preferences and skill set requirements, you're seeing students moving from what appears to be sort of traditional computer science kind of careers and moving into a bunch of adjacent careers like AI ethics and applied AI and other types of coding and technology management. So this is incomplete, but it's sort of worth monitoring how student preferences move to align with jobs as they start becoming. It's important to note that degrees happen in terms of multi-year planning cycles. And even at our fastest, we're setting up new offerings on an annual basis. Industries and careers move on a daily and monthly basis. So it's general alignment and trajectory that matters more than the specifics in this particular circumstance. And I think the last one we're going to look at in detail is education, because it's unique in that we are actually graduating almost exactly the number of openings in education that the state of Arizona has. The problem here, the issue here is not growth. We maybe grow 500 new teachers a year. The actual issue is retention. So when the teachers are leaving the workforce at an extremely high rate, almost all of this 10,000 per year is leaving the field. And that's not something that the board and the universities directly impact. That's something that we need to consider and advocate for and think about how we can't graduate our way out of this particular workforce dynamic. And therefore, it's going to require additional tools. The other thing that's worth noting, though, is that even when you look at a field where we are producing more than enough individuals to meet the need, there still may be differences under the surface. And what you see here are a number of documented sort of gaps within the education ecosystem where you have types of teaching and types of skill sets that our schools continue to say that they don't have enough of, like STEM teaching credentials, like special education and bilingual and dual language and early childhood skills. So those are things that we can continue to dial in to try to get students the skills that they need in practice while trying to bolster what that looks like. So I mentioned this before, we'll just say it again one more time. There are plenty of student pathways that are not captured in this direct mapping. And I think two really good examples are things that you would bundle together as liberal arts, humanities, and social sciences. I mean, psychology is generally one of the most popular majors that a college offers. And there's not that many professional psychology careers. Psychology is a field that leads to all kinds of things. And I'm guessing many of the management folks in this room probably have some psychology studies under their belt. So to remember that it's not a clean mapping, it's just a sense that there are, these pathways are dynamic. The other piece is biology and life sciences. Those are fields, again, that are quite popular, but also tend to be launching points for other more advanced careers and fields. So thinking of those as a pipeline to important degree areas and graduate degree programs, I think is an important part of this understanding. So that gets us to conclusions. Thank you for bearing with that flyover. But the point of it gets down to the question of how can we think about some of the levers as it relates to this dynamic workforce space that the board can be focused on, that the universities can be focused on, and then we can find opportunities both within career fields and more broadly. So on the career field front, again, the reason we highlighted the 4 that we did is because they all come with different flavors and different kinds of solutions. So when we look at healthcare and behavioral health, that's something that's about partnerships. It's about clinical pathways. It's about finding opportunities to graduate more people into these fields and advocate for the conditions within them. With computer science and data science, it's about monitoring those student trends. It's about looking at how the field is changing and making sure we're staying engaged with and ahead of that as needs change and preferences change. When we look at teacher preparation and shortage areas, it's how can we give those key skills and give those areas of focus within an otherwise broad and challenging teacher employment context. And then the last piece there is with all of these fields that are struggling to keep people and have high turnover, what can we do to advocate for, to think with, to partner with, to provide best practices in order to improve the work conditions, the pay, and other factors that are leading to the types of burnout that then necessitate us having to get so many people in to keep these fields moving forward. And with that, we'll end with a few reflections. Like I said, this was an attempt to frame and talk about workforce alignment in a really broad way. But the important piece of this is that it's really complicated and dynamic, and it's like trying to explain how a jungle grows. Like, this is not a thing that we can predict in a really linear, PowerPointy way. The only way to really navigate it is by talking to the people who are engaged in it and working with. So we've pulled out some of those themes that the little vignettes help us with. One of those is around the work that we can and do as it relates to university employer partnerships, like getting people out of fields and into the workforce in practical ways. There's pathways related to apprenticeships and workforce learning, what we can do there and what we're already doing there. Cross-sector pathways, like working with our K-12, working with our high schools, our community colleges to get more students through and to streamline the pathways and lower the costs in order to get students where they need to be. And then finally, what we're doing to work with industry to actually understand what those signals are so that we can stay ahead of that curve and make sure that folks are well aligned. So I turn it back to the chair and look forward to hearing what the presidents and universities would have to say on those topics.
President Crow.
Sort of 2 overall comments. The first comment goes to the complexity of this issue called workforce. So if you take the 4 categories of educational attainment, less than a high school diploma, some college or an associate's degree, and then a bachelor's degree or above, in Arizona, the growth rate since 2000 for those with a college degree or higher in the workforce is 27%, one of the highest in the country. More than 1 million of the actual tax-paying workers have college degrees. Some college or associate's degree, huge growth rate now. By the way, the percentage of the workforce that has a bachelor's degree in Arizona now is 34%. And it was 8 points below that in 2000. This is a huge change. Some college or associate's degree, 29% of the workforce now, huge growth rate. High school diploma, shrinking growth rate of the workforce. Now 26% of the workforce, and less than high school, long-term decline, heavy structural reduction, greater than, there's only 10% of the workforce now, and their rate of decline is 6.7% per year in the workforce. That creates an unbelievably complicated social set of issues. We're hugely doing what we're asked to do to produce people capable of taking these kinds of jobs. And so one of the things that we work on are 2 points for regions to sort of keep in mind. So it's not so much that we're training people to do specific jobs. That's only true in a few areas. We're training people to do many jobs, to do lots of jobs, and to be trainable to do even more and complicated jobs. But the other thing that we've done with some of our stuff that we have now is we're making our information, our materials available to everyone. We're now graduating high school students that didn't finish high school. We're through our Pathways program. And so the thing that we've tried to do is sort of take on this whole problem. So rather than the university be just the production of college graduates, we're also preparing people to go to college. So we have graduated, we have 6,000 that are attending ASU, mostly online right now, that earned their way into the university after having not prepared themselves in high school. And so all of these job by job things are very important. We look at all that stuff. We try to be responsive to the market. But it's also the case that the general level of educational requirement is accelerating. So I'll just remind the Regents that we're building a community college system for the Navy, in which ultimately they want everyone to be a college graduate in the Navy. Everyone, every person. You can't join the Navy now without being a high school student that can pass an education test that means you have the capacity to learn much more. So a lot of the, I think, meaningful arguments that are going on out there, my own view is the more that we can say that we're preparing people to do any job, all these jobs, and also we're trying to open up the institution to be available to anyone, may help us a little bit in these complications. I was shocked in looking at these numbers that the rate of decline in job creation for certain educational attainment levels, and the opposite for college graduates, which have a 2.5% unemployment rate in Arizona against a 2.9% unemployment rate in the country.
Thank you, President Grow. Other comments or observations from board members? Questions for Brad and Andrew? Thank you, gentlemen. Brad, we will be seeing you again shortly. Next item is item 4.4, a request for approval of a fiscal year 2026 Regents Research Grant, advancing applied solutions for Sonoran Desert fire regimes. Sarah Harper, would you please present this item?
Thank you, Chair. I would also like to introduce a guest. This is Tom Torres. He is the Director of the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management, and he will provide remarks shortly. The board office asked the board to approve a TRIF Regents Research Grant to advance applied solutions for Sonoran Desert fire regimes, a tri-university award to NAU, the U of A, and ASU. As with all Regents grants, we partner with a state agency to define a challenge and opportunity to address through collaborative university research. The Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management, with Director Torres's leadership, is our partner agency for this grant. This grant grew directly from the Future of Arizona Forestry convening last summer at the U of A's Biosphere 2 in Oracle that ABOR initiated. That work prompted a competitive process in which 6 proposals from across our 3 universities responded to the department's opportunity statement. After scoring, a tri-university proposal led by NAU with the 3 universities was selected by the department. We have prepared a brief video to share with the board, and following that, Director Torres will offer some comments.
Over the past 5 to 10 years, wildfires in the Sonoran Desert have grown bigger, they're more intense, and they're more destructive. Historically, in the Sonoran Desert, a wildfire has not spread like it does nowadays because of the lack of continuous fine fuel, specifically invasive grasses that make fires larger, more intense. And so right now we're dealing with a fundamentally different fire regime in the Sonoran Desert. This research will help us to identify what's some more effective ways to address fire in the future in this very important landscape in Arizona. If successful, this project is going to help local officials manage fire in the Sonoran Desert from local knowledge perspective to an approach that uses science and data to help us make more informed decisions on where to best invest in mitigation efforts, where to invest in suppression capacity, and then also finally, where we need to make fundamental changes with policy to help protect communities, the public, and infrastructure. This is a growing problem. Our fire seasons are getting longer. It's driven by higher temperatures, extended drought, and all resources that we can bring to bear on this issue is hugely important. And I'm very grateful to be working with the regents and the 3 universities to help address this, this important issue. All right, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I want to begin by just expressing my appreciation to the board for your continued commitment to addressing some of Arizona's most pressing natural resource challenges through applied research in collaboration through the universities and state agencies like the one I lead. Through the Future of Arizona series, building roadmaps for a resilient future for Arizona. Part of a resilient Arizona includes landscapes that are resilient to wildfire. As the state director for the Department of Forestry and Fire Management, I have statutory responsibility for a big part of the state, about 22 million acres. 9 million of the state trust lands, 9 million of those are state trust, 22 million or the remaining 13 million are unincorporated private lands. And these lands include a variety of vegetation types, ponderosa pine, like we have here around NAU and Flagstaff, woodlands of juniper and pinyon pine, grasslands, and large areas of Sonoran Desert populated by the iconic saguaro cactus. The Sonoran Desert covers roughly about 1/3 of the state of Arizona. It includes many of our fastest growing communities, critical infrastructure corridors, important watersheds, and some of our most important recreation and tourism areas. So protecting this ecosystem from the growing threat of invasive grass-driven wildfire is an environmental and public safety priority. It's also an economic priority for all of us. And so while much public attention understandably focuses on large forest fires and the ponderosa landscapes, that gets a lot of media attention, we're also witnessing a fundamental change in wildfire behavior across the Sonoran Desert. A couple of notable examples from recent memory. In 2020, the Bighorn fire that burned north of Tucson, that started largely in the Sonoran landscape. And then that same year, the Bighorn fire burned about 120,000 acres, very impactful. And then that same year, the bushfire started in the Sonoran Desert and burned northwest of Phoenix towards Four Peaks area. That burned about almost 200,000 acres. So both of these wildfires demonstrate that right now, these changing fuel conditions in the Sonoran Desert landscape, combined with warming temperatures, extended drought, create landscapes that can drive destructive wildfires that have many impacts. And so, for generations, the Sonoran Desert experienced relatively infrequent fire because native vegetation was naturally discontinuous. And as you saw in some of the video, some of that discontinuous vegetation is now filled in with invasive grasses. And today, these invasive grasses have fundamentally altered the fire environment that land managers such as myself, fire leaders, and firefighters face on a continuing basis. The Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management, we asked a pretty straightforward question to our friends at ABOR and to the 3 universities, and that was, how can we make better science-based decisions about reducing wildfire fuels in the Sonoran Desert to mitigate that fire risk? And more specifically, we wanted to know what treatments work best, when they should be applied, how should they be prioritized, and how can we maximize the effectiveness given that we have limited resources to invest in those, including money? And so these questions have real-world implications. Every year, the land management agencies across the state of Arizona, whether it be the state or counties or local municipalities, tribal governments, or the feds, think U.S. Forest Service or BLM, we make significant investments in fuel reduction efforts across the state and more in the Sonoran Desert landscape, yet we're often forced to make decisions with incomplete information because treatment effectiveness can vary greatly dependent on where you're at in the Sonoran landscape in the state of Arizona. That's why this research matters. What excites me most about Dr. Thode's proposal is that it's not only research for the sake of research, it's applied science that can be used by fire managers and land managers in the field on a continuous basis. So really excited about that. Dr. Thode's team really has some really nice complementary folks from both the Arizona State University and the University of Arizona down in Tucson. So the proposal focuses on developing products that will help decision makers better understand where risk is increasing, where those invasive grasses are likely to expand, and which fuel treatment strategies provide the greatest benefit under different conditions. Among the most valuable products that will be developed from this research are decision frameworks that allow managers to compare treatment effectiveness, feasibility, cost, uncertainty, and ecological outcomes instead of relying solely on experience or applying the same treatment everywhere. Land managers will have access to a more robust and scientifically validated decision support system. So the ultimate benefit here is better decision-making. Better decisions lead to more effective treatments. More effective treatments lead to reduced fire risk. Reduced wildfire risk leads to safer communities, improved firefighter safety, healthier ecosystems, and a more efficient use of taxpayer resources. Equally important, this work will help protect one of the world's most unique ecosystems, the Sonoran Desert, which is not only central to our identity as a state, but also supports tourism, recreation, biodiversity, cultural resources, heritage resources, which are important to communities all across the state. Finally, I want to recognize the collaborative model that made this possible. One of the greatest strengths of Arizona's public universities is the ability to bring together world-class scientific expertise and practical problem solving. And through this partnership, researchers, practitioners, land managers and leaders, legislative officials, elected officials are working together from the outset to ensure that these products are relevant, actionable, and capable of being implemented in the near term. So today, on behalf of the Department of Forestry and Fire Management, I want to again thank you all for your consideration of this grant. I also want to congratulate Dr. Thode and her team for developing a proposal that directly addresses the question that we asked. How can we make better decisions? We are excited to work alongside Dr. Thode and her team at NAU and ASU and the U of A and our land management partners to move this project forward. One of the other really great things about Dr. Thode's proposals is it incorporates the ongoing work that's being developed and is being led by all kinds of partners across the state, not just the land managers I mentioned, but there are the NGOs that are involved in this. Think folks like Sierra Club, Audubon Society. So it's bringing forward a lot of those good partnerships and good science and practical research from the ground to really inform really useful products that we can use in the future. So with that, I want to again say thank you.
Are there questions for Sarah or for Director Torres? Thank you, Director Torres. You were even more impressive in person than you are on video.
I appreciate that.
But the video has music.
So I would like to make a motion to approve the TRIF Regents Research Grant, Advancing Applied Solutions for Sonoran Desert Fire Regimes, a Regents Research Grant to NAU, U of A, and ASU in response to the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management's opportunity statement as described in the executive summary and supporting documents. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. Congratulations. Well done.
Appreciate it.
Sarah, if you would stay and present our next item, a request for approval of a fiscal year 2026 Regents Community Grant measuring the returns to procurement policy changes in Arizona local governments.
Chair, we also have a video on this one.
Oh, wow.
No, we don't.
Just fake it.
A procurement policy changes.
I was like, how is that gonna go?
But it is super.
I was
good.
ready.
One of the things that they
What
really want.
did you do?
Thank you, Chair. This grant builds directly on a 2025 Regions Community Grant that was led by ASU and completed a comprehensive study of procurement practices across Arizona local governments. This new grant, which also will be led by ASU, moves from identified opportunities to implementing solutions in real-world conditions. The City of Kingman will work with Mojave County to establish a shared strategic procurement program. ASU researchers will track not just cost savings, but the staffing, coordination, and system changes required to make improvements durable, and benchmark those outcomes against the cost of implementation. The goal is to understand what it actually takes to make procurement work better at the local level and whether those approaches can be replicated across other Arizona communities. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions from the board?
Sure, I may make a brief statement on
Yep.
this. So when Sarah's team brought this to me, I was procurement, really, we're gonna bring it on procurement. And she said, this is one of the things that leaders throughout the state need the most help on. They're the most interested in, and they are the most excited about. So we are investing in helping them and investing this grant.
Are there questions on this subject? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2026 Regions Grant, measuring the returns through procurement policy changes in Arizona local governments as described in the executive summary and supporting documents. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the motion carries. Let's go study procurement.
Yeah. BDPs.
Moving to item 4.6, Brad Kendricks, please return. Will you please provide us a review on the 2026 Annual Financial Summit and Financial Management Business Process Review?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon again, Regents and Presidents. And I'm happy to invite, with the Chair's approval, the three university CFOs to come join me in the case they would like to comment on this. Peer pressure. So I'll go ahead and start framing this for you. So board policy requires the board office to do two things annually as it relates to financial process improvement and governance. The first is to hold a financial in-service for the three universities' senior financial staff to come together, work together, compare notes, dig in on things that are emergent issues. And the second one is to conduct a rotating business process review, where each year one university takes the opportunity to do a deep dive on documenting their financial processes and allow their friends to make fun of them. So those are things that we have done this year. And we took the opportunity on May 20th to bring everybody together to really talk through both of those business processes. So I'm just here to give you a little bit of an update today. So on the 20th, we spent half of our day doing that senior leadership in service. And this year was specifically wrapped around the topic of cash liquidity and financial forecasting. So from that time, we had everybody in the room together. It was a structured conversation, but it was a good exchange of peer notes and thinking, an opportunity to have a candid conversation about the pressures in this space and the practices that we have. So each university went through how they manage their asset stack, and that ranges everything from operating cash to money markets accounts to short-term investments, and sometimes even quasi-endowment structures. So different ways of tracking all of that immensely complex financial work. All three universities are running sophisticated behind the scenes operations to manage this, to track it, to optimize the return on cash that the universities are using. So we spent a lot of time talking about what those tools are and the best way to explain and really indicate what's going on in each of those spaces. We had a substantive conversation about cash on hand, specifically around the dynamics between how the universities go about forecasting and managing that, combined with the tendencies of our outside raters to change those policies somewhat frequently and in ways that are not transparent. So there's some real on the ground challenges to fully understanding and accurately capturing what goes on in that space. We talked about committee investment structures, debt tracking tools, things that our vendors are providing for each of the institutions that could potentially be borrowed or replicated elsewhere. And it led to a lot of good conversations that will then allow us to have some follow-up work in the space of sharing those best practices and continuing to develop better reporting tools for the board. We then moved from that conversation to one where we were talking about a business process review, and the fine folks of the University of Arizona volunteered to be the first institution to go through that process. So we put forward a self-assessment template that talked about 10 different domains of financial management that included budget development, forecasting, revenue strategy, cost management, treasury, capital planning, reporting, financial culture, and continuous improvement. So the university went through, documented their practices, including things that they are well established in, as well as things that they are working on and they want to continue to developing. So I'd like to point out a couple of things, and John has not approved this commentary, but a few things that I think they did a really good job of explaining and where the university has put a lot of work into. The first is they have a rigorous all funds process by which the CFO and the provost are deeply engaged with all of their operating units in order to set budget targets for each year and to put real constraints and targets on how operations will proceed. They have a new budget and fund balance policy that establishes reserve thresholds within the university so that they have clear governance in that space. And they're in the process of implementing in this next year a new budget model that brings back more incentive-based and activity-based targeting and how they allocate their funds so that they can be a little bit more flexible financially. On the other side, we've had some really good conversations about places where the university is continuing to work and where the other universities could provide good advice and good examples for them to reflect on. So we talked about how the universities control positions in FTE oversight. We talked about budget reporting at the unit level, so the detailed budget reporting that goes on with management. And both of our university or other universities had really good examples of how they handle that they'll continue to work with the University of Arizona on. Overall, I would argue that it was a very collegial afternoon that had a lot of good and deep conversations about how these different processes function. The next steps for us is to repeat this again next year. So we'll be setting a new topical focus area the next time around so that we can use these opportunities to really dig into what's hot at the moment. And then one of the gentlemen to my left will volunteer in the near future to be the next subject of the review once we've had an opportunity to look at the process and see what worked and if there's anything we need to adjust the next time around. With that, I subject the CFOs to your questions.
Are there questions for either Brad or any of the CFOs? If there are none, they will be back shortly, so we will get another bite at the apple. Seeing none, thank you. We will move on to the next subject. We are skipping item 4.7 and moving to item 4.8. Brad, please present on the fiscal year 2025 athletics report for Arizona State, Northern Arizona, and the University of Arizona. We also, do we have the athletic directors? Are they on via Zoom or?
They should be.
Okay.
Yes. So with that assumption in place, I will go ahead and get started on this one. So thank you. I'll try to keep this brief. Each year we publish for the board a combined report of university athletic progress over the last year. That includes both financial operations as well as competitive and structural changes that happen. This reflects what the universities are already publishing and what they call the EADA report that gets circulated for comparison in national circles. The first thing that I'll tell you is this report was on FY25, which ended almost a year ago. So this is not the latest and greatest. What this is the latest and greatest that we have and can compare to others in the conversation. So one of the reasons that we have the athletic directors here is that they'll be able to fill you in on the last 11 months in a wildly and quickly changing athletic environment. But that said, I will summarize what some of that official data shows so you have a sense of the direction. The first thing that is worth noting is that I forgot I have slides. So if you look across the institutions, the first thing that's worth noting is that you have two largely self-sustaining athletic programs in ASU and U of A. They are both competing in the Big 12, which is Power Four, highly competitive fields. You also have Northern Arizona University, who is competing as part of the Big Sky, which is an FCS program and has different economic conditions and incentives. So you're going to see different types of results. The good thing is that across all of them, 25 was a big year in the sense that it was the first year that ASU and U of A competed in the Big 12. I will also note that across all three institutions, they have academic performance that far exceeds kind of national norms. I think the threshold for NCAA is something like a 930 APR for academic eligibility and graduation rates. And all three of our schools are legitimately strong at over 990. Very quickly looking through each of the three schools. We start with Arizona State, which had one of its stronger years in recent memory. Revenue grew by 15% to 166 million. The Big 12 transition really delivered financially in the sense that media rights were up, conference distributions were up, and they finished with a $1.4 million operating surplus when it was only break even the year before. Competitively, it was a historic season, and that you had football's first conference championship since '96, women's volleyball's first conference title ever, 4 total conference team championships. One forward-looking note that we'll circle back to is that this year was the first year of the financial obligations that come with the House settlement and NIL. So that leads to yet a different set of financial pressures that I'm sure we'll hear more about. Flipping to Northern Arizona, this one is structurally different than the other two universities in that, unlike in the bigger conferences, Northern Arizona, like its other FCS peers, are largely institutionally supported. So 68% of their revenue comes from university support. It's not necessarily a problem. It's just a design difference for competition in this forum. Competitively, though, it was an exceptional year for NAU. Swept the Big Sky men and women's all sport trophies for the first time since 21, 9 conference championships, and a football playoff appearance. If we look at the University of Arizona, that's a school that turned a $20 million deficit in FY24 into a surplus in 25. Revenue was up 7% across all of the same categories participating in Big 12 conference, and expenses were down 8%. So there's a real meaningful financial turnaround of the program in FY25. And then competitively, again, you saw 3 Big 12 championships, triathlon national championship in their second year of competition, 90% graduation rate. So the program is performing well, and that's before we talk about the successes in the current year. But again, House settlement changes the dynamic, and we'll hear some more. Just to round this off, we brought in a little bit of comparison data just to get you a sense of how this stacks up relative to peers. Now, like I said, FY25 is the most recent data that we have definitively for our universities, but unfortunately, they haven't published the peer data yet. So we went back into FY24, which is an exact match, and found all of our Big Sky and Big 12 peers in order to get a sense of where our 24 and 25 data stacks against theirs. The real takeaway on this first is that we're looking at total revenue, and both ASU and U of A are squarely in the middle of the Big 12 conference in terms of revenue generation. We've got ASU 6th of 16, U of A ranked 8th. For NAU, they were 5th of 12 in the Big Sky. So we're at about the norm in our competitive conferences in terms of the revenue that was being generated over these years. The next thing that we look at is revenue self-sufficiency. So that's that model we were talking about, how much of the revenue is coming from the revenue related activities of the sport versus institutional support and student fees. And here we have, ASU generating 86% of its own revenue by that definition. U of A was at 91%. Both of those are at or above the Big 12 average for generating revenue on their activities. NAU generates 31%, which is again around the norm for its Big Sky colleagues. The last piece that we look here is around sport cross subsidy. So one of the things that we always have to remember from a board perspective is that the athletics departments are really portfolios that are highly cross subsidized. So the headline is that the Big 12 football is the engine that drives this. All of the revenue and the surplus that comes from ASU sports is coming from ASU football, and at the University of Arizona, the football and basketball programs are kind of carrying the costs of all of the other programs. That's not necessarily a failure. It's just a reflection of the design of competitive athletics at these levels, and the fact that it's, knowingly that there are programs that don't have the same kind of exposure to market and revenue opportunities that other programs do. So I think that summarizes the key pieces that jump out from an annual report. So I'll take any questions on that data, but I would really love if we took the opportunity to hear from each of our athletic directors about this and what they've been seeing over the course of the last year as things continue to change.
Let's hear from the ADs. Desiree, you want to start us up?
Thank you. Sorry, Graham. Well, thank you very much, Chair Goodyear. Thank you, Brad, for presenting the comprehensive report. Fiscal year 25 was a foundational year, and quite frankly, it positioned Arizona athletics to accelerate in fiscal year 26. We're now seeing the results in fiscal year 26 of a balanced budget, record fundraising of $46 million in climbing, historic growth in corporate partnerships, significant naming rights investments, and continued success across our programs. Competitively, this is one of our most successful years in the history of Arizona athletics, winning a national championship again in triathlon. Men's basketball, we're very proud of, advancing to the Final Four. Football earned a bowl berth. Women's volleyball returned to the NCAA tournament and advanced. And our men's golf team reached the Final Four, something we haven't done in many years. Men's tennis also reached the Elite Eight for the first time in program history. And our track program is competing right now in Eugene, Oregon. As the collegiate athletics landscape continues to evolve through NIL and revenue sharing, we remain committed to innovation and excellence and providing our student athletes with the resources and opportunities they need to be successful. So the story of fiscal year 25 is not simply about moving from deficit to surplus. It's about creating a sustainable model that allows Arizona athletics to invest in student athlete success, compete for championships, and advance the mission of the University of Arizona. So thank you to our student athletes, our incredible coaches, our staff, donors, and our campus partners for their efforts and hard work. And also to this board for your continued support.
Thank you, Desiree. Graham?
Chair Goodyear, Regents, good to see everybody. Thank you for that presentation. Would echo the sentiment that Desiree shared. Very foundational year for ASU and Sun Devil Athletics in fiscal 25. First year in the new conference, first year in our new model, unique to ASU, and building on the momentum of all the competitive success that Brad talked about in the report. And so happy to report as we're starting to close out fiscal 26 that we've continued that momentum. We've got a 20% increase in our controllable revenue this year so far as we close out, highlighted by a 17% increase in ticket revenue once again, selling out our football season for the first time ever from start to finish, record student attendance, and all but one of our ticketed sports set some form of attendance record, whether that's ticket sales, average attendance, total season attendance, et cetera. And so the ticket momentum was indicative of our partnership momentum, up 18% year over year. A big step forward this year in our fundraising efforts. We have 107% growth in new gifts and commitments. Many of those booked this year. Some of them are committed on multi-year pledges. We recently announced, many of you saw, the $10 million endowment for the Brian and Kelly Sweetie football endowed head coach, our second head coaching endowment of the year, following one that we announced for our head hockey coach earlier this fiscal year. So momentum across our commercial business. We're really excited. We do see the unique benefit of being a Research One university, a powerful athletic department in a major growing metropolitan area, and obviously our incredible state. And we're working hard every single day to navigate that, as the cost of doing business in collegiate athletics is obviously changing. That's well documented, including this week. But we're putting our focus and our energy on creating resources that our coaches can use to lead our athletes and amplify the university and connect people in our community. Record year competitively for us, as we have 5 Big 12 championships, the most that we've had departmentally since 2007, 2008. So building off last year's 4 conference championships, advancing that with 1 more this year. highlighted by what softball did, a mere few outs away from the Women's College World Series. But very exciting there. This morning we announced returning baseball player Landon Hairston from Queen Creek, Arizona, was named the Baseball America National Player of the Year. So our trajectory in baseball continues as well. That's a really significant milestone for him to be the best player in a sport that's so near and dear to our university. And then lastly, academically continues to be a point of pride. Brad mentioned the APR at 990 plus. It's our 10th year of a 990 plus APR. And then we just found out yesterday, our student athletes set a spring record cumulative GPA of 3.45. So we're adapting, we're adjusting to the climate change around college athletics. We understand that there's incredible demand for revenue, relationships, partnerships, et cetera, but all in the spirit of giving our coaches the tools and the resources to lead our athletes at the highest possible level and just bring new people into our spaces throughout the year. So happy to answer questions, and thanks for giving us a chance to share some good news.
Thank you, Graham. We'll ask questions after Tanya does her presentation.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodyear, regents, and presidents. Thank you for this opportunity. It was again a banner year academically and athletically for NAU athletics. Academically, NAU student athletes continued to excel, earning a 3.395 spring GPA, with 28% of our students earning a 4.0. For the first time in our history, all of our teams earned GPAs of 3.2 or above. NAU's APR is 994, which is also the highest in our history. 134 students earned Big Sky Conference all academic honors, and we expect another 50 to earn that in the spring this year. Athletically, since this group last met, our men's indoor track and field program finished 7th at NCAA's, including 2 individual national championships and a distance medley relay championship, reaffirming NAU's national prominence in the sport. But it isn't just about one program. Our 15 teams earned 9 Big Sky championships this year and 1 MPSF championship in the sport of women's swimming and diving. For the 11th time in school history and the 5th time in the last 6 years, NAU claimed the Big Sky Women's All Sports Trophy. And we currently have 5 athletes competing in Eugene at the Outdoor Track Nationals, with a chance to bring home more championships to Flagstaff. The results in competition and in the classroom reflect the strength of our athletics program and the university-wide culture of support that surrounds our student athletes. That's something we are genuinely proud of. Regarding our areas of focus, as Brad's presentation made very clear, our priority is building from the strong foundation and into the new era of college athletics. We strive to be financially more disciplined and make strategic decisions in everything that we do. NAU will be opting into the House settlement this cycle, and we're actively developing the contract, risk, and revenue architecture needed to operate responsibly in this rapidly evolving environment. Like the broader university, athletics is conducting a careful review of its finances, aligning expenditures with operational realities, and focusing our resources where they matter most. Obvious to all, revenue growth is imperative. Through this process, it's been identified that the vision, strategy, and operations around RevGen need to be more effectively designed to meet the NAU community. A more comprehensive plan is being worked on to recognize this real opportunity to optimize NAU's facilities, capitalize on its brand, and re-engage with our partners and donors who can help us generate revenue for the university and athletics. Additionally, the university is committed to build upon our current fundraising efforts and work in partnership that can help NAU better match and ultimately exceed our Big Sky peers. Now, our road ahead, our most important priority is to complete the national search for a permanent athletics director and onboard a dynamic and experienced leader ready to carry the work forward. The candidate pool is incredibly strong, and we're confident the person stepping into the role will find an exceptional environment in Flagstaff, an athletics program with competitive momentum and a truly committed university partner. We expect to conclude the search in the next 2 weeks. Candidly speaking, I've been incredibly impressed with the leadership at NAU during my short tenure. President Cruz Rivera, Bjorn, Michelle, Lori, Brian, and the entire cabinet have been outstanding partners as we embark on this important work. I found the athletics department staff administration, and coaches to be the perfect blend of ambitious and solutions-oriented. And of course, like our sister institutions, the student athletes are perfect representatives of our student population, motivated to explore all that the university has to offer in pursuit of graduation and making the world a better place. I'm extremely confident in the future direction of NAU athletics.
3 exceptional reports. Are there comments or input from any of our board members? You're not here. You can't see the heads nodding. Everyone is impressed by what the 3 of you just reported. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For item 4.9, the board is asked to approve the fiscal year 2027 annual budgets for ASU, NAU, U of A, and the board office. Brad?
Thank you, Chair, Regents, Presidents. While the universities are preparing to give their presentations, I just want to introduce the item briefly and give you a sense of the environment. So the board is being asked to approve the FY27 annual operating budgets for ASU, NAU, U of A, and the system office. Combined, the system budget's $8.5 billion in total revenues across all 3 universities and the office. It's important to underline context that's going to be behind everything that you hear today, and that is about the macro financial environment. This isn't the first time you've heard it from us. Unfortunately, it probably won't be the last time that you hear it from us, but it's worth noting some specific pressures that are driving in here. Arizona's universities are navigating what is probably one of the most complicated higher education ecosystems that have existed in recent memory. State support per student, while growing in absolute dollars, continues to represent a declining share of university revenue, with appropriations ranging in 10 to 12% of the total operating budgets, down nearly 20% from a decade ago. Enrollment demand is uneven nationally. Demographic headwinds and changes in how industries and students are moving are all putting pressure on how the universities find and attract and retain students. Federal research policy is in flux and continues to not be as reliable and changing as grant and contract revenues shift between priorities and modalities. The underlying piece of all of this is that the cost of inflation in the higher education setting, as reflected by HEPI, the Higher Education Price Index, is showing 4 to 5% annual growth in costs. That's something that undercuts every other thing that we're talking about and that our universities have to continue to navigate. So taken together, the margin for error is pretty low and the stakes are fairly high. That said, I think the takeaway that you're going to see across all 3 of these presentations is that each of our universities are predicting and building for positive net results at the end of each year. And given that environment that we just talked about, that's something that takes real work and expertise. That's not something that it should be taken for granted. So with that, I would turn it over to the universities to talk through their specific priorities and proposals, after which we'll ask the board to take motion and vote on those proposals. The other thing that I will note is that this is the first of many conversations that the board will have about finances during the year. So this is the approval of a starting line. These are starting assumptions, and these assumptions are based on what we have known for the last couple of months. The reality is there's things happening today and over the next several months that will continue to unfold that will have material impacts. And those things will continue to come back through the board through updates, most notably when we come back in November and provide a comprehensive resetting of our budget forecast for the year based on enrollment, appropriations, and everything else that happens in the meanwhile. So with that, we'll turn it over to Arizona State.
Dr. Crow.
Waiting, it's coming. It's a big binder.
What I'll say as introduction to Morgan, who will walk you through the present model, is that Arizona State University remains at Sea State 9, the highest sea state we've ever been at in terms of the complexity of the ocean that we're attempting to navigate. That is actually accelerating in some ways due to cancellations of projects and so forth and so on. At the same time, we're a well-built ship, and our plans for going forward reflect our carefully thought through assumptions, but I did want Regents to be aware that this budget is reflective of our Sea State 9 environment that we're operating in. So with that, Morgan will walk us through it.
Well, now I'm just sad because I don't think I have a picture of either a ship or an ocean in the presentation. So just imagine that.
Or music during your presentation.
Or music, that might help actually. So always like to remind ourselves that everything that we do is driven by the charter, which you see here. And so budgets are actually financial embodiments of your organizational plan. This is in fact our high-level organizational plan. And so everything that we're doing and proposing in the budget is reflected in what you see here in terms of the things that we attempt to accomplish. We're going to be showing you enterprise figures, which means Arizona State University and our affiliated entities. So it will look a little bit different than what you see in the book, which is university only. But we do operate ASU as a public enterprise, which means that we have coordinated parts with our affiliated entities being essentially special purpose tools that help us accomplish certain things that are important to achieving the overall charter. So a snapshot of a couple of things. Revenue growth by our standards, we think will be modest. This is fiscal year 26 budget compared to fiscal year 27 budget. Just a little under 2% total revenue growth, expense growth, about half of that. So maintaining our margin. So compared to the fiscal year 26 budget, about a 16% increase in the budgeted margin. We will actually outperform our fiscal year 26 budgeted margin pretty substantially. So this is more of a return to equilibrium here. We do expect that we will improve our days cash on hand measure, which I know the board likes to know about, by about 26 days based on the assumptions in this budget. So some of the parameters that are the basis for the numbers that you see are the following. FTE enrollment, we think will continue to grow, but at a more moderate rate than is typical for us. I'll say more about that in a minute. Overall, about 1.1%. With our ASU online or digital immersion enrollment increasing again at a faster rate than our campus immersion enrollment. Tuition and fees revenue net, we think will increase by about 4.1% or $125 million. That's both enrollment growth and adjustment in pricing. Public investment we're showing here being down at about 7.5% or $38 million. As you've heard several times today, the budget resolution for fiscal year 2027 is actually being still debated in the legislature unless they finished while we've been talking here this afternoon. And there are still several variables in here that could make this number a little bit worse or a little bit better, but this is what we built into our assumptions at this point. Salaries and wages in terms of total expenditure down, we think about 1% over last year's budget. You will see in some of the numbers I'll show you in a minute that was a conscious policy decision that we made during 2026 that was a significant part of how we overachieved our budgeted net margin for this year. Benefits continues to grow at a rate above the overall rate of inflation, 7.5%. That is mostly the cost of healthcare that we all experience in the economy. We're maintaining our commitment to accountability and affordability there, about a $66 million or 6% increase in financial aid, much of which is institutional aid. So that's very much an institutional commitment. Here's a picture over the last 12 years of our enrollment. As you can see, it's quite a story. About a 63.5% increase in full-time equivalent student enrollment between campus immersion and digital immersion students. That breakdown this year is about 55% campus immersion students and about 45% digital immersion. If you went back to the start of this time series, the proportion of the total enrollment that was campus immersion would have been significantly higher than that. And so you see the result over time of those differences in the growth rates of the various types of our enrollment.
Let me just make sure that Regents understand that this is the full-time equivalency calculation as opposed to the actual number of students that we have.
Correct. This is adjusted for make everyone a full-time student. So most of our digital immersion students are in fact part-time students by normal definitions.
So here is tuition and fee revenue. As you can see, we anticipate about $125 million increase in net tuition and fee revenue for next year. On the box on the right reflects the sticker price adjustments. In other words, before institutional and other aid, so not necessarily what students see in terms of a change in net price. And you can see how that breaks down between campus immersion, digital immersion, and fees. So about $3.2 million of total tuition and fee revenue.
Billion. And so
Billion, excuse me. Thank you.
Just to refresh the Regent's memory. So our net tuition for an in-state student is under $2,500.
So a lot of discussion about public investment or state appropriation, depending on your terminology. This reflects enterprise numbers. Remember that we run ASU preparatory academies, which we believe will have state support of about $77 million during this year, a slight increase, $2 million from the amount that we project of $75 million this year. But when you look at these numbers, that includes both. It's important to remember that the university only is the other two pieces there that you see in terms of state general fund support for Arizona State University. As you can see, that's going down in a fairly significant way as it stands today as we sit here. In fact, I would mention that for us, of every dollar we spend, whether it's enterprise or ASU, only 8 cents comes from state investment in both this year's budget and next year's. Enterprise total compensation will grow, we think, about $100 million last year. If we'd added another year or two coming out of the pandemic, we had very strong growth in hiring and total compensation. It was running at about 7% annually over a several year period. We decided to make an adjustment in part because of the sea conditions that President Crow referenced there during this fiscal year. And so next year, we think that we will grow that a little bit more. It's important to do that for a variety of reasons, but basically so we can recruit and retain top talent, and also so that we can, meet the commitments that are included in the charter and the plans that you have implicit in our budget. So student financial aid, as you can see, there's a little bit of a dip from budget this year. That can be explained basically because of non-resident and international student enrollment being a little softer than we anticipated a little over a year ago when we were putting together the fiscal year 2026 budget. But again, we do plan to increase those allocations for next year to do the most that we can to make sure that an ASU education is affordable and accessible. Here's the top line numbers at the enterprise level. As I said, about 1.6% growth in overall revenue. I will mention you see gifts being down a little bit. It's important to understand that is a function of when we decide to draw down private gifts from the ASU Foundation and spend them in our ASU budget. Overall fundraising is going quite well. We're in the middle of capital campaign. President Crow may want to comment on that, but that is going very well.
I'll just comment that in the previous year, we raised $630 million. We'll be close to $500 million this year with our target is a $600 million per year annual fundraising objective. That's what we're working toward. We believe that we're making progress toward that. That's a 20-fold increase from where we started this transformation, 20x increase.
We're also closing in on a $2 billion endowment market value. It wasn't that many years ago that we joined the $1 billion club, both because of good investment returns and continued support, by our alumni and friends. We think we will hit that $2 billion total endowment figure within the next year or two. When you think about the revenue pie and things that we can do ourselves and be self-reliant, that's an important part of the overall strategy. So expenses, again, growing at about a 1% rate. You see the breakdown here. In the interest of time, I won't bother going over that. You have a lot more information in your materials here, but just say that we anticipate maintaining our margin. And this again is at the enterprise rather than the university level, about $250 million budgeted margin for 26. We're going to exceed that significantly, actually, when the books are closed.
A lot of that is investment return. Some of it is a little more TRIF allocation than anticipated, and quite a bit of it is spending less than was originally budgeted. We go back to a more typical number for fiscal year 27. We like to try to maintain between a 3 and 5% of total revenue margin in terms of our operations.
I'll just comment on the way that we handle the C conditions is that we do make adjustments in our spending, very significant adjustments in our spending. We do not talk about them.
So that's the summary. And Mr. Chair, if there are questions that any board members have, we'd be happy to address them.
Thank you. Board members? Regent Brewster?
Real quick, thank you, Chair. Rough employees of ASU, number 6,000-ish.
That's a little low.
Okay.
If you,
faculty.
yeah, if you, yes, about 6,000 faculty, remembering that we have a lot of student employees, part-time employees, et cetera, but that number, the number of people we cut a paycheck to every month, during the academic years, probably around 40,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? Thank you, Dr. Olson.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Crow.
Thank you.
President Cruz Rivera and Bjorn Flugstedt will now present for NAU.
All right. Thank you, Chair Goodyear, members of the board. PowerPoint summary that I'll walk through really summarizes the details in the board materials. And it really is reflective of a lot of work looking forward to a reality going into this upcoming year. And it also reflects the themes that we've been really focused in on as a university community over the past couple of years under President Cruz Rivera. Thinking about strategic finance a couple of years ago, strategic finance 2.0 this past fall, and really thinking and really emphasizing anti-fragility as we plan forward into what we expect will be a enrollment challenge during this upcoming year. External revenue pressures we project will be down in revenue approximately 6% for this upcoming year, driven by enrollment. We expect to see reduction in state appropriation, but we also then also are aligning our expenditure base with that reality as we look forward, all to drive increased liquidity and financial resiliency going forward. So this is what the revenue trend for this upcoming year looks like. It does show that 6% drop in overall university revenue from just over 700 million to approximately 660 million. And you can see how the components within that revenue base change. Enrollment and assumptions, as I mentioned, this really looks at what that FTE projection is for the upcoming fall, down 10.5%, undergrad down about 8%, grad about 22%, but I will caveat that with an intentional online graduate program closure that we had that contributes 6 percentage points of that decline. What does that mean in terms of the overall tuition and fee revenue decrease? It's approximately 9%, $17 million roughly. Revenue per student, though, dollars tuition and fee per student, would be increasing 1.9%. So this is the work that we were doing over the past several months as we were leading into planning for this upcoming year. But what does it actually look like this week as a snapshot? And that just shows you a little bit of we are holding steady with the incoming class. That is a actual positive. You can see that is a good trend. Domestic, transfer, direct graduate student is up, but we do have some things related to Grad Plus loans that we are navigating. It's a new regulatory environment that we have that we might see additional melt and or not to see the typical enrollment on the graduate side going forward. But right now, overall enrollment is down point in time this year to point in time last year. This is the overall components of revenue. As I mentioned, 6% down. We will be coming back obviously in the fall once we know the state appropriation and updating that number. When we know what the overall enrollment level and the overall enrollment mix is, we'll be updating that. But this does show just overall the year-to-year change from this year's projection of the $45 million lower in revenue. So the work that we've been doing as we took a look going forward with that revenue outlook is really thinking and acting upon the expenditures. What do we need to do to think through overall operational staffing? What do we need to have in terms of space utilization? How can we think about our expenditure base going forward? And you can see some of those key points there as noted on the slide. With the largest expenditure base being personnel, that really is, when we think about expense management, it really is position control. April to April, we have decreased our overall full-time employees 4%. And that is something that sets us up on a trajectory, to make the changes to go forward with that decrease for salary and wages, which is 9% salary and wages. So overall, with a 6% drop in revenue, pushing to drop expenditures more than that by 8% will allow us then to have a net margin of the 1.5% of revenue at this upcoming year, with the goal to have a 3 percentage point in FY28. So this year's margin will be projected to be 10% and higher than going forward into FY28. Because we're dropping the expenditures, which is the denominator in the days cash on hand, we will be looking to have higher days cash on hand, not only for next year, but also then going forward. And this then shows our trend here at NAU in terms of the days cash on hand, the budgeted forecasted days cash on hand for FY27 of 175. Those are the slides that I had. I'll stop there, answer any questions that the board might have.
Are there questions from the board for either Bjorn or for President Cruz Rivera? Seeing none. Bjorn, well done. Thank you. Next up, John Arnold from the University of Arizona.
Thank you, sir. As always, it's a pleasure to be here with the board. As we talked about last month, our strategic imperatives drove the budget approach for fiscal 27 for the third year in a row. Resident tuition remains unchanged. And the budget also eliminates our graduation fee and some other service fees. So we prioritize student success. We're also investing in some high demand programs, including medical education, health professions, and nursing that support. These are high demand programs for our students. They're also programs that Arizona needs. We're working to improve retention and graduation rates by increasing funding for counselors and other student support services. We're also growing and strengthening our research infrastructure. We'll just work through a process to fully integrate the health sciences into the rest of campus. And there's investments in engineering and mining. One of the things we worked on really hard this year, Brad mentioned it in a review of the financial summit, is we put in place a fund balance policy. And then we've brought all of our college fund balances into the positive area, which is a big step as we move into the future. Further, we're continue to work on and improve our liquidity. This budget increases our days cash on hand by an estimated 6 days. Enrollment changes, total enrollment will be down about 2.7%. It's a mix of on-campus and online. Our undergraduates down a little bit, graduate up a little bit. Our online, we're projecting down about 6%. feel like that's a conservative forecast with some upside. We're going through a reforecasting process right now based on the latest data. On the revenue side, ongoing revenue is down about less than 1%. Net tuition revenue, same. Again, these are changes that we planned for as part of our enrollment methodology change. We had this built into the budget and we're prepared for it. At the same time, operating expenses are down about a little over 2%. Days cash on hand, as I've mentioned, we're turning this into a smiley face, which is the goal. So we've got the down and now we're starting on the up, and which makes everybody happy. So it's thrilling to see that bottom. The fiscal 26 number we've projected and stayed on to 78. Hoping that that number will be a little bit higher than 78 as we close out the fiscal year. Finally, we just wanted to look and put our enrollment numbers in context. Going back to fiscal 22, the jump between fiscal 23 and 24 is bringing UAGC into the university. That's when they officially became part of the university. But you'll note as well, our total enrollment is down off of the 2025 peak. We're still between 24 and 25 total enrollment. So still very healthy and positive. And these changes, again, were part of the overall business plan that we put in place a year ago. So right in line with where we want to be. Other key metrics, our net position, we're projecting to be up about $51 million. And our E&G per student, so our average spend per student, is down slightly in this budget, which tracks with our lower expenditures. So we're about 22,500 in fiscal 26, so down about $500 per student. So with that, I will take any questions.
Are there questions for John?
Questions about John.
Smiley.
Are there comments or observations about John?
He just had to speak one more time.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about John. Hearing none?
All righty.
John, well done. Thank you.
Smiley face.
This is an action item. I move that the board approves the fiscal year 2027 annual budgets for ASU, NAU, U of A, and the ABOR office as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. I think I can say on behalf of the board that all three of our universities are in very good financial hands. You take this very seriously. You update us regularly. We're grateful for the information and press on. Our next item is a request for approval to enter into subleases with American Campus Communities for student housing at Arizona State University. Dr. Morgan Olson, would you please present this item?
Chair Goodyear, members of the board, board policy requires authorization for leases in excess of $1 million annually. As you know, we have about 9 different P3 projects for student housing with American Campus Communities that have been placed, some of them since 2006, over 9,000 beds total. We have a mix right now of 2 approaches on that. In some cases, we have a marketing and licensing agreement whereby we assign students to the facilities, but ultimately the variability in the revenue is with our partner, American Campus Communities. We have others that are under a master sublease wherein we negotiate a occupancy number and a rate, and so we pay them the resultant rate there, and variation is owned by the university. What we are recommending to you today is that you authorize us to use either approach, a master sublease or a marketing licensing agreement. We're in the middle of discussions with our partner and ultimately would intend to do what is in the best interest of the university. I know it's been a long day. There's a lot of information and material, so let me just stop. And if there are questions that the board has, I'm happy to address them.
Thank you, Morgan. Are there any questions for Dr. Olson? This is an action item. I move the board approve Arizona State University to enter into a sublease with American Campus Communities for student housing at ASU, including a waiver of ABOR policy 7-207, requiring committee review for leases of real property with annual base lease amounts exceeding $1 million. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. We have just gotten a nice text. Regent Bo, you have been confirmed by the Arizona State Senate.
Move up, move on up. Move on up.
Next is the student regent report. Regents Fisher and Garcia. Is Regent Garcia on via Zoom or?
That he is.
So you will carry the ball. Go to it, Regent Fisher.
This is gonna be one of the speediest presentations today, I think. Starting off with basically what I was talking about earlier. We've been continuing our work with students. So I'm not gonna go too far into that because you heard a lot about it earlier. Looking forward, again, we just got IRB approval for our listening session at ASU that will be surrounding campus culture, hazing, and alcohol use. So the work that we've been doing with the SHIO Basic Needs Academy, if you didn't know, Arizona is one of 7 states that has been selected to be part of this academy with SHIO. And so we have rolled that into our food and housing work group. So we've been continuing to work on that. On May 18th, they convened to kind of establish set definitions, prioritize the things that we want to accomplish. And then on June 30th is when we will move from this kind of framework design to actual action planning and moving forward into next steps. With the dashboard exploration, that's again with that Basic Needs Academy, moving forward to have some consistent data across all 3 universities so that they can be compared. And then again, mental health and wellness work group, trying to develop that system levels report so that we can come forward with recommendations. And yeah, that's the cliff notes of what we've been doing. It's been a privilege to work with Roxanne on this, as well as Regent Garcia. And the next time we give a report, Regent Garcia and now Regent Bo will be giving the report. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Regent Fisher. Before we move to our next item, we would like to take a moment to thank you for your good service to the board over the last 2 years. She's completing her 2-year term. She has fulfilled the purpose of a student regent by ensuring that student voices were heard, respected, and reflected in the board's work. From the outset, Jaden approached her role with a clear commitment to advocacy. She engaged with student governments across our universities and brought those perspectives directly into our board meetings. She provided leadership on student mental health, wellness, helping elevate student experiences and ensure those perspectives inform the board's work. She has been a joy. I mean, you have added real value. Your path reflects the impact of Arizona's public higher education system. As a participant in the Arizona Teachers Academy, you benefited from a program conceived of and designed by Regent Duvall to meet the state's workforce needs. And now you're going to begin your career to serve in Arizona classrooms. Throughout her service, Jaden has demonstrated a strong commitment to education and a belief in the role that students play. We want to recognize the influence of her family, especially her mother, Shannon Fisher, whose dedication to education helped inspire your path. It's especially meaningful that Jaden will begin her career alongside her. On behalf of the Board of Regents, thank you, Jaden, for your leadership and your service. We are grateful for your contributions and confident you're going to make a real difference in the state of Arizona. We are grateful. And if you would come up and receive this. Thank you. Congratulations. Whatever you choose, just you can open the university's gifts. They're better. Chad?
Thank you, Chair. It is my emotional piece.
About that.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. It is my opportunity and pleasure to read a letter from Regent Garcia to Regent Fisher. Dear Regent Fisher, I apologize for not being here today. I'm studying abroad, but most importantly, you've earned the spotlight today, and I wish you could be here. It is often said that student regents work twice, balancing their studies with their board responsibilities. In Regent Fisher's case, she worked 3 times, being a teacher, student, and regent. Jaden is an exemplary individual that has served with compassion and fearlessness. She is not one to shy away from tough questions, of which I can attest, and is always the first to approach complex issues with wisdom and curiosity. I'm personally proud to consider myself a student of Regent Fisher. Although I'm sad to lose a great friend and regent, I know that success awaits her in the classroom. Congratulations on 2 years well served, and thank you for your leadership. Best, Felipe Garcia.
President Crowe?
Yes, I have a gift also, but it comes with a story. Behind this. So, Jaden, you are the latest, greatest, best product of an institution that was designed in 1899 to do what you're going to do. Find people committed to the next generations, train them to be teachers, and send them directly into the classroom as young people. And you have demonstrated in all of the interactions you and I have had that you're more than ready for that. You are not flappable. Like I can tell you, like, I don't agree with you. And you're like, well, thanks for that. But you know, you're very analytical, very professional, very focused, very committed. And the fact that, and people don't understand this often, you know, relative to, we produce teachers, and teachers are public servants, and teachers have this unbelievable role. You'll have in your 6th grade class next year, you'll have 30 or so kids. I don't know the exact number, but
113.
oh, you have the new model.
Yeah.
You have the new model. So I just think it's going to be unbelievable. You'll soon be the principal, so that whoever's listening should get ready. And then you'll soon be the superintendent, and then you'll be back on the regents. And so our 2 universities, ASU and NAU, we both started as teachers' colleges, and that's a proud tradition. It's the single most important thing that we produce as a teacher. So we haven't had many student regents that became teachers. And so you're just the role model. You're the role model for why we're here. So I appreciate it very much. Now, what we have for you is a complete work kit for you as a teacher. all the things you need
All the things.
in your sixth grade classroom. So congratulations. Congratulations.
For U of A, is Rachel Reinhardt in the room? Will you come forward and represent U of A?
Front, which I will get after I make remarks. So good afternoon. On behalf of the University of Arizona, I want to thank Student Regent Fisher for her remarkable service and the impact she's had on students across our state. Her commitment to student voices has ensured that student perspectives are central to the board's decision-making. And what stands out to me has been her focus on transparency and accessibility. She listens carefully, as many of you have noted, both to the dialogue happening in each board meeting and to the stories of her fellow students that inform meaningful change. And we saw strong evidence of that today. Her passion for supporting mental health was apparent as she co-led the Student Wellbeing Work Group. Student Regent Fisher is a model of thoughtful leadership. As she advances into her career as an educator in Arizona's classrooms, she carries this experience of shaping policy at the highest levels of our state's higher education system. Jaden, thank you for your service. You came prepared to every meeting. You asked meaningful questions. You remained true to the issues that matter most to you. Thank you for reminding us that meaningful change is possible once someone cares enough to do it.
And now the home team.
Thank you, Chair. Good year. Regent Fisher, over the past 2 years, you have brought energy, empathy, and a genuine student voice to every conversation at this table. You champion mental health as a basic need, elevating it to stand alongside food and housing as a system priority. And you've taken that conversation from our tri-university campuses all the way to Washington, D.C. to talk directly to senators and representatives. That kind of conviction is rare, and this board is better for having had it. Because without the perspective of a true peer and contemporary of the students we educate, our conversations risk drifting to the abstract and missing what is fundamental to all that we do. The success and well-being of our students, recognizing their lived experiences, preparing them for lives of purpose after college. Jading, as a lumberjack alumna, just want to make sure everybody,
Got it out there 3 times.
right? Your contributions make me proud. You represent the best of what this institution provides and seeks to instill in our graduates. Public service with the board, showing up in the residence halls at midnight as a community assistant, academic excellence recognized as a Gold Axe and President's Prize recipient. You are a real leader. And I have to say, as someone who has spent his career in education, there is something especially meaningful about welcoming a future teacher into the ranks of our alumni. You have seen higher education from every angle, as a student government leader, as a regent, and soon as an educator shaping the next generation. Your students are so lucky to have you. On behalf of Northern Arizona University, I am proud to present you with a few tokens of appreciation as you step into this next chapter. And I will take this over to you in a second, but we'll just share what is in this little package here. A water bottle and tote bag, because a good teacher is always on the move. A pennant and sweatshirt, so your future classroom knows exactly where you came from. Northern Arizona University, Northern Arizona University. A keychain, pen, and alumni sticker, the official starter kit for life as a lumberjack forever. And an alumni travel wine glass, because you've earned a proper celebration and you're of age. Thank you for your service, your heart, and everything you gave to students across Arizona. We cannot wait to see what you do next, and we have no doubt you will carry this beautiful place with you always. Thank you so much. Felicidades.
Our final report today is from the Arizona Faculty's Council, Dr. Lisa Kawam. Please present.
Thank you. I have no idea how I can remotely get close to any of that, but I will try to leave us on a high note and wrap us up. So good afternoon, Chair Goodyear, esteemed regents, university leaders, colleagues, students, and guests. Thank you as always for the opportunity to speak with you today about the future of our shared purpose in serving the state of Arizona. As we look ahead, one of the greatest opportunities before our universities is not simply to grow enrollment, but to expand who sees themselves reflected within higher education and who believes that a university education is truly within reach. Arizona's future depends on our ability to welcome and support students from every background and every stage of life, and to extend opportunities to those who never believed that college education was possible. This includes military families and veterans who bring discipline and global perspective, as well as first-generation students and rural students whose presence enriches our connections between universities and communities. We welcome students of every ethnicity, religion, and cultural background, students who are parents and caregivers, second career learners, international students, and adults who stepped once away from higher education and now are returning. These students are not outside to the mission of our universities. They are central to it. In the spirit of the recent message from Pope Leo, our students are the epitome of magnificent humanity. Diversity in all forms is a strength. It strengthens our classrooms, research, civic dialogue, and the future workforce of our state and nation. When students encounter peers with different experiences, histories, and perspectives, they learn how to think more critically, communicate more effectively, feel more deeply, and participate more responsibly in a complex world. This is one of the greatest contributions of our higher education system. For students to leave college better humans than when they arrived. To truly serve these populations, however, we must remain attentive to the realities students are facing in 2026. Across Arizona and across the nation, families continue to navigate rising costs in almost every category. For many prospective students, the decision to pursue higher education is no longer shaped by aspiration alone, but by economic calculation and access to federal financial aid. Even students who deeply value education may question whether they can realistically afford to attend. This is why affordability and accessibility must remain shared priorities across our system. We cannot allow higher education to become something students view as unattainable or only reserved for a narrow segment of society. We cannot gatekeep opportunity. Our universities must continue to build pathways that are flexible, supportive, and financially manageable for the broad range of students we hope to serve. As we have previously discussed here, faculty are the core of this work. We recognize potential in students who may not yet recognize it in themselves. We are the ones who say, you can do it, you're doing great, think of it another way, or, especially now, I know you're tired, but keep going. We cultivate confidence, intellectual curiosity, and belonging. We help students connect education to purpose, career, and community. We are mentors, guides, researchers, and educators who make the university experience human and transformative. Protecting and supporting faculty is therefore essential, not only for academic excellence, but for academic freedom, civic thought, and robust community engagement. Nationally, we all have watched this last year as the relationships between faculty, administrators, and regents or trustees have broken down or been severed. We here in this room, as colleagues, have the same shared purpose. We cannot let this happen. And in support of our work, I want to clearly reaffirm our intention as the ASC to not only support our current relationship with the board, but to further deepen our partnership and work together moving forward. This message, the message faculty hope to receive from the Board of Regents is ultimately one of collaboration and optimism. We ask for your continued support and trust in communicating a message of hope and possibility to the people of Arizona. We ask that you continue to strengthen coordination and collegiality across our institutions and reinforce the idea that Arizona's public universities remain places of opportunity, innovation, and belonging for anyone who wants to learn. Finally, it has been a wonderful year as AFC chair, and I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. I'm pleased to share that I've been reelected to the chair position for next year, and even more pleased to add that Mona Emo, back there from U of A, will now serve as my vice chair. I would like to thank my AFC colleagues who know that while I don't take myself seriously at all, I take our work extremely seriously. I'm grateful for their wisdom and guidance and correction as we've navigated this last year together and look forward to our next chapter ahead. Thank you as well for your leadership, stewardship, humanity, and continued commitment to the public mission of higher education in Arizona. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Other questions? Thank you, Dr. Kwam. You are a valued member at this table, and we are grateful for your service. Thank you. This concludes the public session. I have a few announcements before we recess. The board is scheduled to reconvene in executive session at 9 a.m. in the Grand Canyon Conference Room for President Crow and Executive Director Sampson's review of assignments. Once again, President Cruz Rivera, thank you. Putting on an event like this is no small feat. We are grateful to you and also especially to your staff who do work so hard to make us feel comfortable and welcome and make sure that every detail is taken care of. So to everyone from NAU who is working on this, we are very grateful for all that you do. That is it. We are done. Public session is now in recess.